Well, here we go again. I hope everybody's doing all right tonight. Coming to you from deep in the heart of the Wild West and pumping out loud and crystal clear from sea to shining sea and all the way from pole to freezing pole and everywhere there is in between. It is always my honor and great pleasure to welcome you to Midnight in the Desert. And I am your host tonight, Heather Wade, and oh man, do we have what looks like a very, very interesting guest coming on the program tonight. Robbie Thomas is joining the program tonight, and I think I need to explain myself here just a little bit. Now, Robbie Thomas is known as the real deal. Now, he is a psychic profiler, psychic criminal profiler. And, you know, as a rule, you've heard me say this before, we don't normally have psychics on the show. As a rule, we just don't do it for a lot of different reasons, but normally we just do not do it. But tonight, we have made an exception to that rule, a very rare exception to this rule. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, but now hang on, wait a minute. I've heard plenty of people come on the show and say that they have gifts. You've talked to remote viewers, you've talked to people about ESP, and I think I may remember one or two people saying that they have gifts, psychic gifts. Sure, you may have heard that, but you've never heard me do a show with someone claiming they are a psychic just on and about their psychic abilities. Now, we've got lots of people with interesting gifts come on the show and usually talk about other things. That's usually what happens. A lot of people with psychic gifts are also involved in ufology and in ghost hunting, and so that tends to cross now and then. But this is very different. This is very different. Robbie Thomas is coming on to talk about his work as a psychic medium criminal profiler, who, by the way, has an incredible track record. And we are going to talk about his gifts, we're going to talk about his work, and, of course, cases that he has been involved with. So I'm really excited about that. Just one warning here that I want to put out to everybody. We open up the phone lines for everybody to call and speak with Robbie Thomas later on in the program. We won't be doing any psychic readings for anybody who calls in, and if you do, I just want to put that warning out right now. If somebody calls and they say, hey, Robbie, you know, I got this question, this problem about my life, and I want to get a psychic reading, I will be forced to hang up on you. I just want to make that clear. And there's a reason behind that, actually, and it's a reason that you've probably heard from Art Bell in the past. It's a real simple reason, because in radio, you generally want to talk about things that the whole audience is interested in, right? That the whole audience is interested in, even if the audience is split opinions on a particular matter, at least they're interested in it. So a reading, a psychic reading from a caller is only interesting to the caller, not exactly interesting to the rest of the audience. And so this is why we don't do that. So I just want to make that clear before we proceed tonight. There will be no psychic readings tonight. Anyhow, that's what we have ahead of us tonight, and I'm really excited about that because, you know, again, we just don't have psychics on the program, and the fact that he has the record, the track record that he does have, and he's endorsed by law enforcement agencies across the United States, and I think, now I don't want to speak out of line here, but I think around the world. Yes, also around the world. So, because of that captures my attention. And I think it would be really interesting to kind of get behind the scenes of what he does and find out, you know, let's go through some of his cases, which are quite dramatic, by the way, and just go through them step by step and figure out, how does this happen? What's it like for him? There's a great movie out there by the name of Solace. I don't know if you've seen it. I encourage you to go out and find it and see it. It's an excellent movie about a similar subject, with Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins plays the psychic in the film, and it's really, really good movie. So that's my thoughts on that before we get started. Now, we've got a lot of news to get through here. I don't know if you've heard, but it looks like there's a company out there looking to install a mobile phone network on the moon, of all places. Vodafone Germany has teamed up with Nokia to build the first 4G network on the moon in 2019 to support a private lunar rover mission by the Berlin-based team known as PT Scientists. Now, the group was one of several teams that competed in the Google Lunar X Prize. Remember that? At a private race to the moon that will end in March, unfortunately with no winners. Nobody won the Google Lunar X Prize. And even though that contest is over with, PT Scientist mission to the moon is not over. The group plans to launch a lander and 2 small rovers on the moon from Cape Canaveral is where they want to launch from, Cape Canaveral, Florida, on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket during the 50th anniversary year of NASA's Apollo 11 moon landing. So that's pretty cool. And the moon's 4G network, which Vodafone Germany announced Tuesday, just this past Tuesday, will support PT Scientists' twin Audi Quattro rovers. Oh, this is really cool. Really cool stuff. And their lander, which is called Alina, and that is short for Autonomous Landing and Navigation Module. The PT Scientist will use those rovers to explore the lunar rover used by the Apollo 17 astronauts during their historic December 1972 mission to the moon's Taurus-Littrow Valley. Now, Vodafone had picked Nokia to build a space-worthy version of its ultra-compact network, one that will be the lightest ever made, just 2.2 little pounds. And, well, what did Vodafone Germany's CEO have to say? Well, you know, I'm about to tell you. The project involves, this is what he said, the project involves a radically innovative approach to the development of the mobile network infrastructure. It's also a great example of independent, multi-skilled team achieving an objective of immense significance through their courage, pioneering spirit, and inventiveness. Okay, well, that's all well and good, but can you hear me now? Right? Or is it more like, can you see me now? Because under this plan, PT Scientist Alina Lander will use the 4G network to beam the first live HD video feed from the surface of the moon. How cool is that? Now, the signal, which operates in the 1800 megahertz frequency band, will be broadcast to a global audience via a deep space link that interconnects with the PT Scientist server in the Mission Control Center in Berlin, according to a statement. Now, this is really, really cool. And you know what got my attention on this? Was a final statement here, which comes from Robert Bohm, who is a PT Scientist CEO and founder. And what he said was just music to my ears when I read this. He said, with Mission to the Moon, we will establish and test the first elements of a dedicated communications network on the moon. This great thing is that it saves so much power, and the less energy we use sending data, the more we have to do science. And it's a crucial first step for the sustainable exploration of the solar system. Oh, God, I love hearing that. And, you know, exactly how it supports sustainable exploration of the solar system, I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. The fact that we've got groups out there, private groups, working on projects like this to explore space, in my mind, in my opinion, is the right step forward, the right direction for humanity. I want to see us explore space. Now, I also want to see us, you know, be good stewards of the Earth. I don't think at all that it should be humans trying to escape planet Earth. I think we should use the technology and the knowledge we have to make Earth
sitting in the chief's office. He comes in. He kept his eye on me, but welcomed the other two and congratulated them. Then he sat down holding the paperwork in his hand, and he says, "How old are you, son?" And I said, "I'm 17. Then he wished me luck and said, "Come back when I'm 20. So I was hired and fired in the same day. That was my short stint as a first police officer.
Well, A for effort.
Yeah. And then, so I continued. I kept the quest. And at age 21, I was hired on in a town outside of Toronto, Canada, in the Peel region area. And I come home after all the testing, the psychological testing, the physical and what have you, and the final interviews. I'm prouder than a peacock. And I'm sitting in the kitchen having coffee, and I hear accident. So I rush out the back door. I hop my fence, and there's a lady in a robe, and she's pointing down this long row of townhomes. So I start running, and I'm running towards the road, and it's curving out to the main street. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to come upon car accident. Sure enough, there's nothing. And then this gentleman goes, "No, it's over here." So I turned left, and I ran over to him, and he's standing in the doorway of the sliding doors on a townhome. So I get in, and I notice a woman running around the table screaming, and then a man to the right holding a doorknob, and he says, "Come here." So I went over to him. He opens the door, grabs me, and pushes me in. And as I'm going into this bathroom, I still had in my mindset accident. So I'm looking for blood on the floor. And I look up, and there's a man in the bathroom, and he's staring right at me. So I look at him, his lips are blue, and immediately CPR, check for vitals. This type of training takes over because you take these type of courses when you go through to be a police officer. And then I go over and I check him for his neck and his pulse in his hand, his arm. And then I go to do CPR and I hear, "Let me go." So I stop for a moment, and I'm not thinking about, okay, I'm hearing spirit. I'm just thinking, I didn't hear that. I'm going to go do it again. Mm-hmm. So I go do CPR, and I hear it really loud, "Let me go." Then I knew. I just knew I was hearing him say, "That's it," right? So the next day, the coroner report comes out. He had a major tear in his heart because it was a coronary. He had a massive coronary. So there was no saving him. And then it was an uncanny thing that happened. It was my sister's best friend's father, and I did not know that. Here we go. You don't quit, Heather, when you become a police officer. They want to know why, and they're very strict about this. So they sent down a film crew, a captain and a sergeant, and they were making a working tool for firefighters, EMTs, and police officers who quit under duress. I wasn't stressed. I just knew I was going to go on a different path to help out in law enforcement and whatever I could do. So the questioning started, and they got to that last question near the end of the interview, and they asked me, "Why you quit?" And then I explained. When I was trying to resuscitate this individual, I heard, "Let me go." It didn't clue into them. They just didn't click. They looked at me like I was strange. But that's the first movie I'm in, and I was about 20, 21 years of age. And that's why I took off and went that route.
Wow. God, it reminds me of, there's an old obscure movie out there. I don't know how many people have seen it. It's one of my very favorite movies of all time. It's called Bringing Out the Dead. Have you ever seen that?
No.
With Nicolas Cage. There's a similar thread actually throughout the entire film, where a paramedic is trying to bring back a man who's had a pretty severe heart attack. And all throughout the movie, the man, through his eyes, is just trying to communicate, "Look, man, let me go." They keep bringing him back, and he keeps going into arrest. I think in the film, they must have coded him, 17 or 18 times. I mean, it was ridiculous in the movie. And at the very, very end, the paramedic who initially tried to bring him back finally got the message, "Let me go, just let me go." And sadly, he did. So, it just makes me wonder how many people who aren't interested in psychic phenomena, don't think about the paranormal or anything, how many of us just on a regular basis, just on a daily basis, get these kind of signals and messages? And what are we missing if we don't listen to them?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, my first book was in 2003, and I wrote 10 in total. My 10th one's out now. But I wrote about a certain situation which you just brought up. in the generalization of intuition. We think the radio and the song comes on the radio. Mm-hmm. We glance at the phone and the phone rings. We think of a friend or a relative and they show up that day. These are just baby steps in intuition. We all have it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe that we certainly do. I think it gets trained out of us, or maybe just, going through school does something to it. Somewhere along the line in our youth, the connection is broken. And then as an adult, a person will stumble upon this in one way or another, and they'll be trying to call that back and get back into that mindset. Well, sometimes people spend years doing that. Other times people can get into maybe using a little bit of ESP. Maybe they'll try their hand at remote viewing, and all of a sudden the switch is back on and this gift begins to flow. And I think it's just like a muscle. They say that our neural pathways, the neural pathways that we use, get stronger and stronger as we use them. And neural pathways we don't use, of course, same thing. They atrophy over time. And I think this ability is just another neural pathway that we haven't used for so long that it has grown weak. And if a person gets into it and starts using it and exercising those neural pathways, it'll get much stronger. And those people that do that, either naturally, maybe they're born with it, maybe it's Maybelline, I don't know. But if they use it enough, then it really turns on, and a person will have an advantage in this life that some other people who aren't trying to use that ability won't have.
Yeah, I think, you're right. It's the part where we become jaded. When people become jaded and cynic of anything in life, we harden ourselves. But then if we become that empathetic individual towards certain situations or people themselves or the moment, we can actually reinduce ourselves into it. It's not hard. It truly isn't. There's a lot of people out there who do have this gift that beyond, and everybody's different. It's true. Everybody's different. I mean, there's specialists in the medical field, and then there's the family physician, and then there's the pharmacist. Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when we look at it, some people are more people are apt to be easy at it, and some really strive hard to achieve it. I just, personally myself, I just let the flow, just let it happen.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, what was your first case that you actually was invited to work on?
Oh, invited myself or the police?
Well, I guess the first case that got, of course, this case here with the gentleman who wanted to be let go, that got the attention of law enforcement, local law enforcement. What came after that?
Well, my first actual case was in 1990, and I was in a parking lot with a gentleman named Greg, who's a friend of mine through high school, and he was managing this complex. So I was looking over his shoulder at this guy walked behind him going to the main entrance, and he had this black shroud around him. It was really dark. When I see people with black around them, it's like there's something really wrong. They've done something bad. So I kept my eye on him, and Greg was watching me look at Jesse. And as Jesse went into the entrance, Greg looked over his shoulder and said, "That's Jesse. Want to go meet him?" I said, "Sure." So we ended up in Jesse's apartment. Going through to be a cop, my line of questioning was really, and I write it in the book, and that was my first case. I write, I'm really strict. I said, what do you do for a living? Were you in trouble with the law? And then Jesse cut on. And if you can picture a miniature Eddie Van Halen, 5 foot nothing, that's what this guy looked like. He was just a dead spot on Eddie Van Halen. So now his girlfriend's pregnant. In the little alcove-shaped dining room to the living room, Greg is sitting adjacent from where I am sitting beside Jesse, and his girlfriend is impatient. And she's pacing back and forth. She's knowing that I'm asking this type of question. And then Jesse says, "Stand up." So I do. And I'm looking at him, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Are you effing hot?" And I didn't know. I didn't clue in. I was aloof to what was going on because I was just trying to find out what's going on with this kid. Mm-hmm. And he lifts up my shirt, and he starts tapping me. He's looking for a wire.
Oh, that's what he meant by hot.
So
okay.
He goes, Yes, yes. And then he pushes me down into the chair. And he says, "You want to know?" He says, "We were ripping off a car stereo across the way from the gas station. Thomas Cook wanted to rip off the gas station. So we went over there and he pulled the gun out. And if you can picture, Heather, like hold your hand sideways with your thumb sticking out like a gun. And that's how he was doing. He's going, and we were popping him like this. And he was hopping like a rabbit. And I'm listening to this kid explain all this and where they ran afterwards. And well, poor Mark Campbell was a 14-year-old little boy who came from Quebec, Canada, to Ontario with his family to he worked in this little cubicle gas station to make a little extra money to go to high school. And they just murdered a little boy for nothing. And so by now, Greg's off the couch. Greg's by the door, leaving. He's scared. And then Jesse asked me to get up, so I did again. And he says, "Get out." So I'm going towards the door. He stops me, grabs my shoulder, pulls me to him, and he goes, "If I tell anybody, he's gonna kill me." And then he says, "Don't worry about it. We're gonna get off on an alibi." And he pushed me out the door. So now I'm down inside Greg's apartment with his wife, and we're frantic. We're talking. And then I leave, and I go and I talk to the detectives. And I'm talking to them. They said, "Listen," and this is the part I did not realize. They were in court that week over this murder that he just described to me. And they're finalizing this trial with him. And sure enough, I said, "I'm not going back." They said, "You have to go back and befriend him. And this time wear wire so we can get what he said to you again." And so we have, because we're in court. I said, "There's no way." There's raw language I use in the book that explains, it's just open and human. It's raw. What was said transpired between me and the detectives and everybody that was in this part of this case.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they got off on an alibi. There was people that vouched for them, and they got off. Thomas Cook decided a couple years later he wanted to murder again, and he tied his girlfriend's hands behind her back, and he saran wrapped her head, and then she couldn't breathe, and she ended up dying, and then he ended up turning himself in. Now he's in jail for life, and Jesse, he's out west in Canada somewhere.
Oh my God. How do you do it? I mean, how do you deal with being involved in such dark material?
Well, my heart was, like I said, wanted to be a police officer, and cases fall into my lap today. Well, a couple of days ago, actually, just yesterday. It's been a long 2 days. There's a very high-profile case that fell into my lap. I was asked to do it months and months and months ago, and I just felt I'd have to wait and persevere in patience, and I did. And this lady came to me. She says she's been living in fear for a year, and she finally wants to get it all off. She sent me the photo. She sent me all the emails, all the date, time, script, everything. And it puts that guy who did this murder on scene. And it's a terrible case. I just can't let you know about it. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you certain details. I'm trying to watch my language here.
Yeah, no, well, there's going to be details that are sensitive to law enforcement. And look, yeah, I don't want you to run any red lights on that account. Not for me.
No, because I speak to the detective at 8 in the morning. So we're on to 4, and at 8 in the morning, I got to get a portfolio ready for him and ship it to him to talk to him. Mm-hmm. But, getting into the sense of the dark stuff, I mean, I was lucky enough on a couple cases to actually, like Jesse and one in Kentucky with Officer Andy DeLay. I worked a double homicide with him in Kentucky, and then he called me up years later about a missing elderly endangered woman in Florida, and we found her within an hour.
What, within an hour?
Within an hour. His text messages are actually on the website, robbiethomas.net, on the home page where people can take a peek at it. It's in the book too, the whole story. All these stories are in the book, Psychic Profile of the Real Deal. And his testimony. I got all law enforcement testimonies, family's letters. I got emails, text messages, everything behind the scenes for each case, so everybody could see that, how it was detailed, put together, and how we got them and saved people's lives. So, the greatest thing was he took me, and I got to speak to one of the suspects in Kentucky. Now, we were down there as a double homicide. 2 beautiful human beings were murdered. All these families too are on my social media. They keep following me, and I talk to them every day. And I'm sure they're tuning in tonight. And here we are. We're in Kentucky. One strong suspect, number one. We had to work around him, and no doubt he wanted to shoot us. So we traced every step, which the third suspect said he couldn't see the fire. So we went down the hill and they curved the road, get down to the one area, and we're standing there. And Andy's about 30 feet from me, and I'm sitting and standing on the side of the road with one of the daughters, and I'm just going over the case with her. And I hear Andy say, "I can pull my weapon faster than you can pull a trigger." And I look over at Andy, and I'm thinking, "What are you doing?" And he's looking into the bush, and I look into the bush, and there's a shotgun pointing at me and the daughter. And it was the suspect's mom. She was cooking she had methamphetamine lab in her house.
Oh, good Lord.
And yeah. So you can imagine what we run up against. So that one gets taken down. She actually got in the car and drove all around. They got her and stopped her. But then we're getting back into Ronnie. So there's Ronnie now. He's the suspect A, tough guy. Suspect B got arrested. He's in jail for a battery. And then we have suspect C, the weakest link. So Andy, we go back to the boardroom and we're talking. He goes, "How can you get him to crack?" And I said, "Give me some Bristol board and some markers." And then we were sitting there and I drew up the character of who he was and then what he did during the murder and what he did afterwards. So we had this all planned out on Bristol board and everything. And Andy says, "You sure this is going to work?" I said, "If it don't, the kid's going to crack when he sees that I can read who he is." So he puts in the SUV. Bobby agrees to meet us at the end of the driveway where he lives. So we go up there when we're waiting for him to come down. We watch him come down this long, windy driveway. And he's standing there. And every sentence he used, he called me Mr. FBI man. Mm-hmm. But you can see Andy had the gun on his hip. So, he's got the badge and everything. And I'm just the guy standing there holding the microphone or the recorder. And so the kid getting on Andy's nerves, and we're playing good cop, bad cop. And Andy goes, "You want to ask him some questions? Go ahead." So I said, "Yeah." I said, and again, raw language is in the book. Mm-hmm. And I know I can't say it on your show. And I said, poop rolls downhill, doesn't it? And are you that poop? But I use different language. And I just tried to get under his skin. And I said, "You are, and I know what you did, and I'm going to get you." And then Andy goes, "That's enough." And he goes, "I got to show you something." He opens the back door to the SUV, pulls out the Bristol board, puts it up, and says, "Read that." And the kid went nearly white, and he's staring at it, and he's shaking his head, yes to everything that was on the board. And I'm waiting for this kid to just say, "Yes." And I said, say it. And he did. So we had him on tape. Now, we got the kid confessing to what Andy was saying on tape. Now, we go to the sheriff, and the old guard, which Andy explains in his testimonial in the book, is that they all switched out. There's, in life, there's good teachers, there's bad teachers, there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good police, bad police, any profession. Okay, mm-hmm. So I want folks to know that, and just don't blame police for anything, because there are a lot of, 99% they're good. Believe me, I work with a lot of them. They care about families. So these guys were kind of not that good, and so they're out. They're out now. They come back after we gave the one detective the tape. He goes, "Oh, great, you got him." And I said, "Yeah." And he took Bobby in the back room for about an hour. Me and Andy are waiting. We're going, okay, well now we got told to wait for the lieutenant, so we're waiting. Comes back out. He goes, "Boys, thank you so much." And he goes, "There was nothing on that tape." He erased the tape. So. Great.
Well, we got to take a break here, Robbie, but we can certainly get the conclusion of this when we come back from the break. And not only that, but several other cases that Robbie Thomas is here to talk about tonight. So, an hour goes by fast. We'll be right back.
Strange what desire make foolish people do.
midnight sweeps across America, you found an oasis for the mind. To call Midnight in the Desert, please dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-5278. First-time callers, 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
So this is a very, very special night on Midnight in the Desert tonight. Robbie Thomas is here, and I know he doesn't like the title, but he is a psychic criminal profiler. Really, really interesting stuff, and I already said we don't normally have psychics on the show, just as a general rule. We don't, but I had to make an exception for Mr. Robbie Thomas because of his track record. Now, actually, we're in the middle of one of his cases right now, and I would like to welcome Robbie Thomas back. Just one thought here, Robbie, before you continue, because I've got to hear this. But your Skype is occasionally cutting out, so I'm going to give this a little more time and see, but we may have to switch up to the backup plan, your other phone number there, so I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. One thing that I wasn't clear on in your telling of this case, you said right before the break that the tape was blank, and he recorded over the tape. Who was it that recorded over the tape?
No, I think what he did was he erased the tape. There was an hour transpired between me and law enforcement officer Andy DeLay sitting in the waiting room while the lieutenant went in with Bobby, and then Bobby went out the back door, and the lieutenant brought the tape to us and goes, "Thanks, boys," and gave us the blank tape. So we had to resort to, like you say, Plan B, and we had to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, a little perturbed. We did a lot of work on this. So we went back to the drawing board and sat and discussed what we could do. Well, we had to get suspect A. We had to do something. So Ronnie got him on the phone. I think this is about the third time we had Ronnie on the phone. And he kept inviting us to walk up his driveway, especially Mr. FBI man, me. And so Andy talked to Ronnie a bit, and then I got on the phone and I said, "You know, Ronnie, those two guys are going to live in your head because what you've done to them. I know what you did. You cut them and you killed them. And the worst thing is that the one man who passed, when you set the fire, he wrote your name. He wrote your name in the soot that was right on the dryer." And I said, "They're going to live in you, man. They're going to pester you and whatever." So we're sitting, we're waiting, and we got all the evidence for them. I had to come back to Canada, and Andy was still doing the case, writing his reports and what have you. Then we find out, not too long afterwards, Ronnie, what I said to him, he checked himself into a psychiatric unit and said that the men's voices were in his head, and he gave a deathbed confession to the psychiatrist, and he ended up committing suicide. So we got the confession from Ronnie. So we had the case closed. Ronnie confessed and killed himself. And then there was another one individual that committed suicide as well. And then Bobby now has taken his life, which he, this kid, because I said he was the weakest link. Yeah. I think he was in the wrong spot, hanging around with the wrong creeps at the wrong time. That type. That guy gets sucked in.
Yeah, God, it's such a shame, because without that, you always wonder, right, if the person had not got hooked up with these people, what trajectory would their life have taken?
True. So we ended up, that case is in the book, and the family allowed the photographs. So I got some photos of on scene, and also of the two beautiful gentlemen in the beginning, their father's son. And, of course, the testimonial letter from the detective and the family. And, it's sad, too, because, you get to know these families, and they become more than just a family. They become part of your family over the years. And it's something else, so I, in a certain way of writing this in the book is to let other people know and to pay homage to that family, but to let other people know that this really truly goes on. And there's people out there who truly help and work with law enforcement to solve these cases.
Well, the biggest question that's on my mind right now is how did you know he was going to be so haunted by the victims? Is this something typical that always happens with murderers like Edgar Allan Poe wrote a long time ago? Or did you somehow pick that up, that he would be haunted by them?
Yeah, it's the latter part because of his characteristics and his behavior. When Ronnie did this, he looked like, they described to us, like he had the little mustache, he looked like Hitler. So when the daughter and the father were walking downtown one day, the father said to the one daughter, "You didn't give Hitler money again, did you?" And he didn't realize, but Ronnie was walking right directly behind him. So he threatened the father that one day he would, his left hand. And what happened was he did cut. It was the left foot and left hand and gutted them. And it was pretty devastating details to this crime. So I just went off of that. I went off of the fact that he was a attention seeker. Not only that, he went and stole from the family. So he kept hitting this poor family. And so I thought, well, I'll hit back and say that, they're going to be in your head. And sure enough, it worked. It was like a psychological implant into him, and it worked.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, and look, in cases like this, you've got to use any tricks you have up your sleeve to get the case solved and to get the person who's responsible for the crime to pay for their crimes. Now, I don't like to see anybody dying. No, I mean, there are people out there who commit horrible crimes, and I don't think they should lose their life because of it. I do believe in the death penalty, that there are some crimes that do call for that, but not every single crime. I just hate to see someone lose their life over it, especially to suicide. But that, God, yeah, I could not do what you do. I think a lot of people could not do what you do. Now, there's a really interesting story that I've been wanting to ask about, and you touched on it when you first came on the show, and this is about what happened in the hospital. I'm really curious about this, because when I was online out and doing research about you, I kept running across people bringing this up, that there was something that happened in a hospital, and the doctors thought this person was brain dead and completely gone, and they were about to pull the plug on him. And then you're called for whatever reason. You're brought in and apparently completely changed the outcome. Do you mind telling us that story?
Yeah, it all started out, we were doing the wrap-up of a paranormal supernatural television series, and it was the filming of episode 8 in Virginia. So I just got to Virginia on Friday, the November 17th, and my partner's Keith H. from the Sci-Fi Channel. So we're doing our show, we're doing our thing, we're happy, and then I get a text message from back in my hometown in Canada that Julie Kiff, and she says, I need somebody who can help. I'm trying to remember the exact words in her text, but it's in the book. When I keep referring to the book, I put everything in there so people can see it. She said, "Is there anybody who can do this?" And I said, "I don't know anybody who's compatible to do that right now." And I couldn't think.
What was she specifically asking you when she said, "We need somebody who can help"? What exactly was she asking for?
Somebody to come in and read to see what is exactly wrong with her husband, because they were going to unplug him.
Got you. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So, all right, all weekend we filmed, a little bit of sleep because you don't sleep much when you're filming a series. Mm-hmm. And then on Sunday, we got in the car, my wife and I, and we drove 12 hours straight back to Canada. And we got back. It was the following morning. I ended up driving to the hospital to meet Julie. And thank goodness, because I asked her to ask the doctors to wait one more day. And thank goodness. And we went into the hospital. Met Julie, and she was in the waiting room, and give her a hug, and then she immediately pushed the code on the door to go into the ICU unit. So we went in through the secure door. She brings me over to Bill, and I've never seen a man that hooked up to machines in my life. He had tubes coming out of him everywhere, side of his ribs, everywhere. He had IVs in his arms, and it was literally they were making him breathe, and it was nothing. They declared him brain dead. They wanted to pull the plug and end his life, and they gave her 48 hours. So I immediately took my hat off, and Lord Jesus Christ is my Savior. I don't push on people what you believe, what have you. This is my belief.
Sure.
This is my Savior. So I started praying, and I asked God. I said, give me something or let Bill talk. Just give me something. And it was about 3 minutes went by, and I heard, it's the wrong medicine. My brain is swollen. And it's going to take time for me to heal. And I heard it over. So then I stopped. I turned to Julie, and she says, oh, no, it's not good, is it? And I said, no. And I hugged her. And I said, listen, this is what I heard. It's the wrong medication. His brain is swollen, and it's going to take time for him to heal. He's not dead. And so then Bill's mom came in, and she's like really tiny, petite, little, beautiful woman. She's 83 years old, and she comes and she hugs me. And I know she didn't know what I was doing there, but she must have known somehow, because when I tried to pull away, that woman had the strength of 10 men. She held me in place, and she looked me right in the eyes and goes, thank you. So then I let them have their moment. I left, and I felt like after I give the information, I'm done, so that they can talk to the neurologists and everybody who's waiting. So I leave. Later on in that day, maybe an hour or two go by, I get a text message from Julie saying the ICU is up in arms, and everybody's running around trying to find an excuse to say sorry to her. And what's going on? I said, well, what's going on? They said they took the IVs out of him immediately. The doctor checked the charts, and they were giving him the wrong medicine. And sure enough, what I said was what happened. And then the doctor said that he'd be like a vegetable and he'd be going to palliative care. But no, he proved them wrong. And like I said, it just takes time to heal. Bill's home now. He's alive. He's talking. He's eating. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a miracle.
Oh, my God. Well, okay, so what does it feel like to you in the moment when you're receiving this information? And, of course, we'll talk about that tonight, too. But in the moment when you're receiving the information, you're telling people what you're getting, and they're probably always a little skeptical. And then after everybody finds out that you were correct, the information you were getting was accurate, and the situation resolves to a happy ending, how do you feel at that moment? You must be just walking on air at that point.
Yeah, I was so happy for her. I cried a couple times, more than a couple times. I was very happy for her and for him. And I said before I left, I looked at him in his eyes, and I said, Bill, all I want from you is a handshake. And so she keeps telling me when he gets better, she's going to take my wife and me and Bill. We're going to go for dinner, and I'm going to get my handshake.
That is awesome. That is really, really something, especially this early in the night to hear something like that. You've knocked me back in my chair. This is really, really cool. Now, earlier you were talking about an old lady. I don't know, is old lady PC? I'm not a PC person, Robbie. I apologize. I'm not trying to be offensive here, but it was an older lady who disappeared. She was missing, and you found her in an hour? How did that happen?
Well, again, here we go.
Yeah.
Good old officer Andy DeLay.
Okay.
Good friend of mine. I met Andy back in 2007 at I'm trying to remember now. You're jogging my memory. We were doing a convention, and I think it was in Virginia. And so I met him there, and then I did again in Kentucky. But then, anyways, he calls me up, and he says, we have an urgent matter, Robbie. There's a missing, endangered elderly lady, and we need your help. She's missing. We got the police out looking for her. So this is at 9:30. The bolo went out. Be on the lookout. Bolo, missing person. So I'm texting to him. I said, send me the file and her photo. So he did. I have her photo on my screen, and I'm looking at it, helping him out as fast as I can. I'm talking to him, and he goes, okay, I got to get off the phone. So then I'm texting him, going back and forth, and all those text messages are all in the book, his testimony about this case too. And I said rocks, water. So immediately he jumps the gun and sends cops over to the creek. And of course she's not there, but I'm still getting information. And I'm telling him I see a bus. She took a bus. She went down to the bay. So Tampa Bay from St. Petersburg. So we're talking, and at 10:35, he texts me back, and you can see it. Robbie, she's found. You found her. She was in the bay, like you said, and she took a bus, like I said, to Tampa Bay, and she got off the bus. It was in the Bay Area. So we brought her home alive. She had dementia and stuff like that, but we saved her life. We brought her home.
In an hour. That's amazing. That is just amazing.
An hour, 10:30.
Wow. Well, have you ever? What's that? The police what?
I said. Then the police made the announcement. I think about an hour and a half after that, about 12ish in the afternoon.
Geez, with just one phone call to you. Now, have you ever been wrong?
Sometimes it happens like that. I don't know how to fit that.
Yeah. Well, have you ever been wrong about a case ever?
Well, here we go on being wrong. There was a case, I know I'm not perfect, but there was a case out of Seattle. And the mom, now this one's really going to be strange for everybody to hear this, or maybe they've heard things like this before, but it's really strange. Mom was a mail order bride from one of those countries over, I'm trying to think of the country, Albania or something like that. And so she came over and married this gentleman, and he's a cross-dresser. But his whole family don't use the front door to go out their home. They have tunnels underneath their homes that like to home. Man,
you weren't kidding. This is strange. Yeah. Okay.
I think Detective Stanton, he was explaining this to me, and I'm going, I can't believe this stuff. So I'm listening to what he's telling me. And so what happened was they went to court over custody. She won full custody. He immediately took the child and went underground and took off. So they asked me, where do you think he would be? So I sat for a while, did my stuff. I did, channeling and looking at his photo. And I said, he went up through Minnesota and he's into Canada. And then there was a break for a little while, didn't hear anything from them. And then the mom comes back on and texts me. And so I get on talking to her. And she says, I got a photo from Quebec. And somebody took a picture of him in Quebec. Can you tell me, can verify this is Quebec? Because there's it looks like French writing on a sign. Looked at the sign as a street sign is French. And I said, well, that's French. And that in Quebec, they have French signs. And so she goes, okay. So then she tells the detective, and then the detective wanted to hear more, but she wanted me to give her all the information where he would be and what his next move was. But I don't do that for families, because what happens is, Heather, they take off and go after the guy. Mm-hmm. And it makes an obstruction for the police officer. When I take on a case, I make it very clear in my policy is that I will continue talking to you, but almost information goes to the police because that's their case, and we can't interrupt that. Well, she didn't like that. She got really angry and pulled me off the case. So am I wrong? I look at that and I still stew about that case. I mean, the girl's still missing. The guy's underground. He's traveling all around, and it irks me because that little girl belongs to the mom.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's an iffy one, because you weren't exactly wrong on it, but you were pulled from the case before it was resolved. So, that one's, I guess, an outlier. I wish they would have called you about Nicholas Cruz.
Who's that?
Nicholas Cruz, he's the one who went into that school in Florida and opened fire.
Oh, okay, yeah. My buddy, an FBI agent, his daughter's at that school. Yeah, so I know what you're talking about now.
Oh, man, they had so many chances to get this guy. And I bet, I don't blame anybody for it. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame them. But if somebody would have went a little outside the box and said, we've gotten 29 calls about this kid. I wonder if we could get a psychic in here, somebody to take a look at the case, because had they done that, do you think they would have known what he was about to do? Is that a part of what you do? Can you see what people are going to do?
Yeah, there's a little girl named Victoria Stafford, in a very high-profile case in Canada here. It was international. America's Most Wanted, John Walsh, did a piece on it. It's funny because America's Most Wanted film crew filmed me in my pilot series with International Police Chief Kevin Smith. And 2 days prior to her going missing, I seen a little girl go into the tree line by a huge pile of rocks and debris, wagon wheels, the horse and buggy, Amish people dressed in Amish. So I write all this out. I'm doing my stuff prior to this happening. And if folks want, they can go to robbiethomas.net, and this is really good because they can hear how this goes. And the Murder Missing Persons tab, scroll down to Fox FM 99.9, and you can listen to the radio program director as he pulled me on, and he goes, I remember you showing me this before they investigated this case, everything. And he goes, I was skeptic, but he goes, I'm a believer now because everything came true. And so it's that was 2 days prior to her going missing. And I profiled a man and a woman. And in the videotape, they just show a woman leading Victoria away from the school, like very blurry. So as we were in the police station, the family and I got to talk to Detective Brown and give her all my information and what I felt on the case. They took everything to heed. They did. They went, and I giggled a little bit because what happened was when I said wagon wheels, lots of wagon wheels, they jumped right away and went to this house that they found that had lots of wagon wheels all around the home. And this poor elderly couple inside, the cops went in and raided.
Oh,
no. For
no.
Victoria. Yeah, it was like kind of a mistake, right? But, yeah, they apologized. But in the letter, or in the whole story there, you can read the family's letter in the beginning. And then you can read the text message from the grandma. She says, I remember you saying the Mennonite village, the clothing, the wagon wheels, and it all fit in just exactly like you said. And it's just, you can't stop the inevitable. You can't stop it, Heather. I've often thought of that. Could I have stopped it?
Mm-hmm.
Could I have prevented her from, and it goes on a lot of cases. And for years, I used to beat myself up about it. Now you can't. You just can't, because I'm being shown what's going to happen, but then I take it a little step further and I'm helping them resolve it. I wish, honest to God, I wish there was something I could do to stop it. I'll give you a real fast example. I'm on the phone to Mark Tillman. He's the original casting director for It, Stephen King. Mm-hmm. And I'm writing a script. And as I'm doing my script, and I'm talking to Don Hutchison, Liftoff Productions, I'm saying, I want to write in here. I know it's never been done before, but I want to write in here 9.0 earthquake off the coast of Japan and a big tsunami, black abyss. And I post this on Facebook, my Facebook page, back in 2011, the week before, in March, before it all actually did happen. And I put it in the script, and then I wrote the book. After it happened, I turned it into a book called Time Shift Paradigm. But I seen it, but you can't stop things like that. Because I got asked before, well, what could you have done to stop something like that? Have you seen that? Well, to me, it was just a vision in my head, and I thought I was writing a script, and I was writing everything down as it correlated to what was really truly going to happen. And, if I was aloof to it.
You're talking about Fukushima.
Yeah, in Japan,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, and then here comes the moral dilemma. I mean, this is why I was recommending the movie Solace at the beginning of the show, just kind of telling people what you are all about and what we were going to talk about tonight. I said, there's a movie out there called Solace. Really good movie. And the movie examines this moral dilemma. We have to take another break here, Robbie, but maybe we can talk about that when we come back. I know there's so much to talk about with Robbie Thomas tonight. And more of his cases to get to as well. But the moral dilemma of a psychic who knows about something that's about to happen or knows something that somebody's going to do, do you stop it? Do you try to prevent it? It's a question philosophers have grappled with for a long, long time. Fate or free will? Which one is it? Well, we'll talk with Robbie Thomas about that and a whole lot more when we come back from the break.
The clock strikes 12, and Midnight in the Desert is pounding packets your way on the Dark Matter Digital Network. To call the show, please direct your finger digits to dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers, of course, at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
And so here we are at this moral dilemma. Let me pose this question to all of you. I've been tempted to do an open lines on this subject, but I just haven't done it yet. If you knew that something was going to happen, if you knew that somebody was going to do something very bad, kill somebody, set off a bomb, some sort of a horrible disaster, if you knew, now, I'm not talking about guessing or maybe you have a funny feeling. I mean you know this is going to happen. Just like, Robbie Thomas, my guest tonight, he didn't realize it, but he got a little bit of information that Fukushima was going to happen. Now, at the time, it didn't come to him as, hey, Fukushima's going to happen. It was just 9.0 earthquake off of Japan. So what do you do with that information? What exactly do you do? Cassandra syndrome, of course, comes to mind here, knowing about something that's about to happen and not having the power to do anything about it. So what do? Do you warn people and be the lunatic that says the sky's about to fall? Or do you let it happen? Or do you try to stop the person? Are any of these viable and feasible options, I ask you? I'd like to welcome Robbie Thomas on back to the show. Before we tackle our moral dilemma here, Robbie, I still can't figure out if I want to switch over to your other phone number, because your Skype does cut out now and then, but not enough to make me want to switch over, because, look, I'll be perfectly honest with everybody in the audience here. Our only other option is Robbie's cell phone. And you guys know how I feel about doing a show on a cell phone. We don't want to do that kind of thing. So I guess I'm trying to avoid that. It's gonna have to start cutting out on us really, really, really bad. The way it's cutting out now, we're not missing what you have to say. So I'm tempted to continue on the way we are now until we just can't hear what you have to say, and then I'll switch over to your cell phone, if you don't mind.
Okay, sounds okay.
All right. So how do you handle this? If you get an idea, you get information, you get a hit, a flash, whatever you want to call it, that something's about to happen, is there even, let's start there. Is there even anything you can do about it before the deed is committed?
Yeah, well, I'm watching people's comments in the one room there, and it's very difficult because I'm going to take you back now to my mother.
Okay.
When the night before she passed, and I know a lot of people know about this, it's called sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was held down, and what was shown to me was the four horsemen. And the one in the white came to me and was explaining, don't worry, everything will be fine, you'll be taken care of. But then they showed me what was going to play out in the day to come. So, I was staggered. I couldn't move. I had to watch the whole thing, and it was my mother's death. So, I get up finally in the morning, like I do every day, to go over to talk to my mother, sit in her kitchen, have coffee and toast. Mommy's boy, right?
Mm-hmm,
so that's what I was doing. And she wouldn't, it was just a weird day, because she was making the coffee and stuff, but she wouldn't turn. She used to give me a hug. She never did. She was still doing her thing. So I sat in the chair, and I just had this thing inside me. I'm compelled. So I said, Mom, I got to tell you something. What happened last night? And I said, this is really weird. And I started explaining to her. And then she turned after that. She says, you go home, and I'll call you later. And I'll watch Tash, my daughter. I said, okay, all right. But I had that push-pull factor where I did not want to leave. I knew what was going to happen, but I had to go home. She asked me to go. So I went home. I'm sitting in the kitchen with my wife and my best friend. It was really strange because he never came over in the mornings either, but he was there. And all I kept my eye on the phone. And I watched, and I'm talking to Jimmy and my wife, and the phone rang. And I picked it up, and it was my father, and he's screaming on the end of the end. And he goes, it's your mother, it's your mother. So we drop the phone, we take off. Jimmy's driving. We get over to his house. I jump out of the car, and there's the EMTs. They're pulling my mom on the gurney. One's on top of her doing CPR, and the other one's pulling the gurney. I remember her purple little sock, her little foot, her hand hanging over the side, and he's desperately trying to revive her. So we made it to the hospital, and they backed the ambulance up. I'm standing in the threshold of the door, and the one EMT helps pull out the gurney. The other guy's on top, still doing compressions, and as he's pulling, he says, stop. And I heard it, and he heard it, and it was almost like goodbye. And he looked at me, and he goes, okay, let's go. So he went into the room, the ER room with my mom, and we all went into the waiting room. And then they come out and told us that she had passed. And then I went into the lobby area, and he come out, and he told me, he goes, you know, I know you looked at me that moment, that I heard what you heard. And she said that, and I heard it. And I said, I know I heard it too. He goes, it couldn't happen because she was dead. There was no way she could have said that. So it was, my heart got ripped out. I mean, that was my best friend. And I told her it was her day. So how do you stop the inevitable? You know, that's my worst thing in fear and trying to think of this, you know, answer, this dilemma, or, you know, like you say.
Yeah, because it's almost an unanswerable question. Because, again, case by case, you got to take that into account. You know, every case is going to be different. Every set of information, every situation is going to be different. And, you know, is this a case where somebody's about to go do something horrible? You know, if we had known that the 9/11 attackers were going to do what they did, there's a hell of an example for us to chew on. Okay, so if I knew that these guys were going to get together and they were going to do what they did, you know, is there even anything a person can do to stop them? Like you say, you're using this word, inevitable. You know, I almost wonder if it isn't inevitable. Actions that people are going to do, can they even be stopped? So, okay, so say Supergirl swoops in and stops all of them. Okay. Well, does that really stop them? Or as soon as they're able, are they going to get back to the plan? Just because you stop something, are you just postponing the inevitable in that kind of a case? Right. You know, and this is why no one's really ever been able to answer this question. And I, you know, I wonder if it isn't better to let things play out, as awful as that can be sometimes. Let things play out and handle the aftermath, because that's something you can do.
Right. It's almost like changing the ripple of time.
You're right.
If you interfere with what God's plan is, or the universe's plan, do you alter the ripple in time? Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, I know. Yeah, I thought of many things like that. And, you know, why couldn't I have stopped and stopped what was going to happen? You know, I don't have the power of that. I don't. Yeah. It's just, you know, I don't know what to say, but I really don't. I'm just being honest. I don't know.
Well, that's all I ask of my guests that come on this show, which has recently come into question, is that you be perfectly honest. And when a person has a story to tell, well, I am here to let the person tell that story. But, you know, I just don't know that there is really an answer to that question. And you also said another interesting word there, power. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Where do you think this information comes from? Have you thought about the mechanics of this? Is this coming from their consciousness into yours? Do you pick up information just from the collective unconscious, as it were? Any ideas on that, where this information comes from?
Yeah, again, I always revert back to God. And in light of that, my angels, guides, them, meaning like when Victoria Stafford was going to go missing 2 days prior to her going missing, this happened. I was being shown. It was something that, again, here I am. It's just like watching TV, and I'm stunned. But I'm drawing everything. You know, and then go back into the case a little bit. So some folks who have who know about this case will get a little in depth. So as I'm sitting with the family, they say to me, and this is where the power thing comes in. They say to me, if she's around Rodney, because I just finished being in the police station with Rodney and the family, and he did his lie detector test. And so we went back to the family's home. Everybody gave their statements and what have you. Mm-hmm. And then they said, if she's around us, can you just ask her tonight, to show you something? I said, okay. So I get back home now, an hour and a half drive from where they are. And I was commuting back and forth to help the family. So I get back home with my wife, and we're getting into bed. And I decided, speak out loud. So I did. I said, Victoria, you just knock on the wall, do something to show us you're here. And sure enough, there was 5 baby knocks of a baby hand on the wall. My wife pulled the covers over her head. She scooted over really quick and said, what was that? And I said, that's Victoria. And I said, okay, Victoria, you need to show me something that is very tangible to what they asked today. Are you near your father? Can you show me something that they only know? Sure enough, she showed me this fox head on top of a ball cap that a girl was wearing. So I'm doodling again. I'm always sketching. So I'm doodling this girl with a ball cap and a fox head on the hat. Mm-hmm. So the next morning, I faxed that over to Rebecca. But I call her first. And I said, this is what you asked. This is what I got. And I said, there's a girl wearing a ball cap with a stuffed fox head on the cap. And then you hear a gasp because they had him on speakerphone. And you hear all the people going, oh, like this. And they said, she just bought him that hat yesterday. Oh. And I said, what are you talking about? And I didn't know anything about fox racing at all. She says, a fox racing hat with the fox head on the emblem on the hat. And I'm not a racing car kind of guy. And I did not know, but that was to signify that she was with them all the time.
Oh, man. I guess that's where the medium part comes in, right? Because mediums communicate with the other side. They communicate with those who are no longer with us. And so let me ask you, do you believe in an afterlife?
Oh, absolutely, I do. 100%. Different realms, absolutely, I do. It's in each other's own belief what they wish to believe. I don't push things on people. I never have. But yeah, I honestly do. I mean, I've been shown things and seen things and horrible things that people don't want to see, and been on death scenes and looked at autopsy photos and things. And it's just that, there's a reason why I'm being shown this. There's a reason why I'm here doing this. Crazy.
Oh, it certainly is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight. Now, when you meet people, when you're just out there in the world, doing normal things that we all do, you got to do the grocery shopping, you got to check the mail, this kind of stuff. Are you picking up information about people that you meet? Does this come involuntarily to you, or is it something that you have to turn on?
No, there's no switch. I've heard people before say, there's a switch, I could turn it off. I just ignore it. I guess maybe that's what they mean, but I just try to, tune out, ignore it. But yeah, there's people you can talk to and read through them in very different levels. I've done it before. My wife doesn't like it. She doesn't like it because I'm too much of a forward individual. And again, apparently that's the cop in me. But I mean, I'm just too forward. I'm trying to find the right word. I'm not ignorant, but I mean, I'm just direct. That's the word. I'm a very direct individual. And she corrects me at times, but I mean, that's just the way I am. Even the people I've worked with in film and TV, and, they always often tell me, they go, you're just too direct, but that's the way I am. And I'm just being honest about people and what have you.
Wow. It's going to be, when we open up the phone lines, Robbie, I wonder what's going to happen, because I don't want us to fall into the trap of people asking you for readings. I don't want that to happen. In fact, I will prevent that from happening. So, based on what you just said, it occurred to me, I don't know if I'm seeing a flash of the future or what, but I just had this vision of so many people calling in and asking you about their own lives, about missing people they may know. Well, God, isn't that a tough one? Talk about a moral dilemma. If somebody calls about a missing person, I don't think I can ethically stop that. because
and that's fine. But here's my policy, and everybody went to my contact page. You can read my policy. I don't give third-party information. I don't talk to third party. It's only directly with police and immediate family. I won't do that on a show because it's not a show. NBC wanted to fly me out to Grand Junction one time, and they wanted me to show them the body where Paige Bergfeld was. I was working with Sergeant Cliff Christ, of all names, right? And he's retired now. But, I mean, that case was very staggering, and how it set precedents. Back in 2016, they went to trial in December, and it was found a mistrial, but the judge ordered them to go back and do it again, and they filed another motion to do another trial with Lester Jones. So in the meantime, I mentioned Lester to before he even got arrested, and where he worked and what have you. So we found the guy who murdered Paige Bergfeld. And when we did all that, and he describes everything in his police report all through the book, is that she was pregnant with a baby. And so the judge seen through that and decided to say it's not a fetus, it's a human being. So double homicide. I won't do a show for anybody to give them ratings on something that a family's bereaving or anything like that at all. I got morals. I'm not gonna do it.
It's not right. It's not right. This is a stance that I have had ever since the microphone was first placed in front of me. It's very important to me that I do not do shows that, that make money off of the dead. It's just that simple. When it comes to things, I'm talking about conspiracies, a lot like 9/11 and Sandy Hook and these kind of things. There's a lot of people out there who want to talk about those incidents and talk about conspiracies behind them, and that's fine for them, but I'm not doing it. So, okay, I make my money because people subscribe to Midnight in the Desert. They'll become a time traveler, and they'll pay $4.99 a month. If I do shows like that, and then that gets tucked away in my archive of shows, well, people are paying every month to go into that archive and listen to what we have in there. And if it shows about that kind of thing, I cannot bring myself to do it. And nobody has told me that this is a personal rule of my own. And I don't invite guests to come on the show to do parlor tricks. So at least there's that. So I'm glad we're on the same page there, Robbie. But I know you've worked on some human trafficking cases also, haven't you?
Yes, I have. A lady followed me since the mid-'90s. And before there was Twitter, MySpace, all that. I had Robbie Thomas forums. I had thousands of people that were on there. It was a spiritual site. So I would teach about how to teach your kids to talk about, their imaginary friends, how to keep notes for them. So when they grow up, they can relate to that and not forget about it. Things like that.
Okay.
And so she followed me since then, and we're coming into the 2000s now. And she called me up and she says, I never thought I'd have to use you, but they took my daughter into the human trafficking. She goes, the detective's at odds, doesn't know what to do, and he asked me to call you. So I said, okay, Kim, let's talk. So we talked pretty much the whole day, and I said, look, you got to do what I say. And because I just have this feeling they're watching your social media. I know they're watching. She's able to see it. She's not too far gone into it where they're not going to return her. I just know that this is what's going on. So I explained what I wanted her to write down. She goes, hell no. My family's too conservative. We're not going to do that. My family won't speak to me again. So the phone call ended. It wasn't the best of terms. Then she called back, and we were talking again. Finally, we're talking again. And this happened a couple times. And then she says, I can't think about what other people think. And I said, that's right. Now you finally get it. Who cares what your family thinks? Who cares what your neighbor thinks or your friends think or anybody? Because that's your daughter.
You got to get that little girl back. And that's the only thing that matters.
That's the only thing that matters. So she did. She put up in her social media exactly what I said. I can't remember what we said. But then, I think it was a Friday, and on a Sunday, she had her daughter back. And she writes a huge, long letter about everything. and that's inside the book as well. But the big line I like, and I'm happy for her and her family, is that she writes, "And he brought my daughter home," and in capital letters, alive.
Alive. Wow. So you told her to make a particular social media post. What did you get a hit on telling her what to write online? How did you know what to tell her to write?
Yeah, it was like a statement, more or less. Like, I know you're watching, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And that
my daughter
led to getting her back. Man, was that just the police took it from there, or were you further involved in the case in getting her back? Did you get a hit on where she was, or did the kidnapper come forward, or what happened?
No, she had her daughter back in 2 days. They let her go.
They let her go?
Yeah.
Oh, because they saw the post.
They let her go. They saw the social media post, and that the police were onto it, and the whole statement. It was a huge statement. I can't remember word for word, but yeah.
That's amazing. That is just amazing, Robbie, that you... And again, I go back to the mechanics of it, and I find myself in a dilemma. Do I want to talk to you about how all this works, or do I want to talk about more cases? I think more cases. I can almost, if we're going to talk about sensing things, I can almost sense from the audience, more cases. Just how many cases do you think you've worked on over the years?
Oh my gosh. I started writing the book, got up to, I couldn't stop. I just kept going. It was about 400 pages. And then I looked at it and I go, who's going to read this huge Bible? I mean, it's just so big. I had to cut it in half, and I made it around 182 pages. Mm-hmm. And then, looking back at all the cases over the years, I mean, there's so many from being at a convention where they said to me, my house got broken into. And I like this one, and this is refreshing. These poor people were at this convention, and they were doing their little booth thing, and they said, our house just got broken in, got everything taken. And I sat with them for a few minutes. I mentioned the guy's name. I mentioned the truck, but it came off of them. The vibe came off of them. And sure enough, the letter is on my website from the daughter. She says, you probably don't remember me, yada, yada, yada. But we found the guys. We got our stuff back. And yeah, so it was, there's that type of thing.
Oh, okay. So that's not really an official case, but it's still a case that you helped on.
Yeah. And the police were involved in that. They got their things back with the police and stuff. Okay. Because they got arrested. But there's other cases. There's so many. I mean, missing people. I write about, here's another thing too. I don't want to get too controversial, but I went on a psychic justice tour in 2010. I was helping out in missing persons and homicide cases through my hometown. I opened up my hometown at the Imperial Theater. It was packed, so I'm putting my name on the line. I'm on stage. I pulled this lady up. She said her husband's been missing since 1996. He walked out of her life with 2 bags and 2 broken arms. One bag containing coke, one bag containing money.
Oh, my God. Well, there's a cliffhanger. Yeah. Hold it right there, actually, Robbie, because we do have to take another break here, and you could not have planned a better cliffhanger if we were planning this, which, according to, contrary to popular opinion out there, none of this stuff is really planned. Things just kind of happen on this show the way they're going to happen. So we'll be right back, and we'll hear about this case and any other cases Robbie Thomas feels like talking about, and we're kind of inching closer and closer to that time where we'll open up the phone line, so I'm excited about that. It's a really, really special night on the program tonight. We'll be right back.
set in the dark stays in the dark. Call Midnight in the Desert at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers are welcome at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
Well, Robbie Thomas is here tonight. He is, and he's gonna cringe when I say this, but this is the name he's been given, and it has stuck through the years. He is the real psychic profiler. In fact, what we're talking about is his book that's about to come out on March 8th, Psychic Profiler, The Real Deal, True Crime Cases, Volume 1. And what is setting Robbie Thomas apart from some guests, like maybe we had on last night, when he refers to his book, he doesn't stop there, which is really nice. He'll say, look, this is in my book, and this is exactly what is in my book, which is really nice and very refreshing. I want to hit the wormhole here just for a second. I got a message from Bruce in Michigan who says, okay, let's take this scenario. Let's pretend I get a psychic heads up that an asteroid is about to smash into Earth. There wouldn't be much time to act. I would choose to spend time with my family because no one would believe me anyways. And that just might be the sad reality of the situation. And I'd like to welcome Robbie Thomas back to the show. So let's get right back to two suitcases. One's full of coke and one is full of money.
Right. I know. Everyone's dream. No. So, yeah. He's been missing since 1996. He took off. Now I'm on tour in 2010. I opened up in my hometown. She wants to find him because she was told, and again, I'm not knocking anybody, but she was told by a psychic he was dead in Mexico, buried along a fence line, not to look for him. Mm-hmm. So from 1996 to 2010, this is what she had. She was crying all the time when I was talking to her. I said, I want you to do some homework. Get a hold of the RCMP and the Ontario Provincial Police, who you're speaking with about your husband prior. I want you to look out west. And I gave her a town in British Columbia. So she did. And I said, don't tell me anything, because when I pull you on stage and we're in front of everybody, I want it to be real and raw. Mm-hmm. So she did. So I got her in a little chair, and we're doing that theatrical thing with a table beside her, a candle, the whole thing. And the spotlight's on me, and I'm talking to her, and I said, so what did you do for your homework? She says, well, I got a hold of the Ontario Provincial, and they got a hold of the RCMP out west, and it's a matter of privacy. And I said, what? She says, it's a matter of privacy. And then all of a sudden you hear a little voice in the audience go, and that's what we were told too. So then the spotlight come off of me into the audience. I jumped down with the microphone. I ran up about 15 rows up. There's this little lady sitting there. And I handed her the microphone, and I said, could you just say what you just said? She said, it was a privacy issue. And I said, she goes, that's what we were told too. And I said, who are you? She goes, I'm his mom. And so the wife on stage was estranged from the mom in the audience. They don't talk. And she didn't know that she was going to be on stage. So It was like, a very big surprise, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. And I'm saying, okay, so now I got two confirmations. So I hop back up on stage, and I let the wife explain a little bit more. And sure enough, when I said he was working with Bow to Cement, he was working with a cement company out in British Columbia, and they found him. He's alive. He wasn't dead in Mexico. So that started out my tour. Number one, we found a guy, and he's alive. We ended up going to Toronto, and then to Iowa, and Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. Worked with the U.S. Marshals and different police agencies throughout America.
Wow. And, I mean, are we talking about hundreds of cases or thousands of cases?
Over the years?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Heather, I really don't know. I mean, let's put it this way. As many that come in my office, there's like at least a dozen or 2 dozen a week that come in my office. It's just a lot of lot of families.
So you can't even keep track of how many.
And I can't. Honestly, I can't.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't blame you, but that just gives us an idea of what the number might be, which was all I was trying to get to. Gosh, I wonder, has anybody asked you to get on the case of Tim Cunningham, the missing CDC employee?
Yeah. Who was that? I know who you're talking about. I'm trying to think of who told me to do that. Oh my gosh, I don't remember the tip of my tongue. Can't remember. But I know, yeah, he's the fella who went missing. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I forget who told me. Yeah.
I think he went to work on February 12th, and he wasn't
he told somebody to erase
well.
something in his phone or something like that?
Did he? Now that's new information I don't know about. I know that he went into work and he wasn't feeling good, so he left early that day. And after that, nobody knows what happened to him. His phone, his car, his dog, his wallet, everything that people would normally take with them, all found at his house. Well, I would think I'd see a headline if they have found him by now, but I have not seen a headline. So I take it he's still out there and missing, but it just comes to mind, and I bet a lot of calls will be like that. In fact, if I go to the wormhole here, let me see. Well, first of all, here's a message that comes from Chad, who says, I'd like to see an organization that combined psychics, remote viewers, forensic specialists, and retired detectives to solve cases. Perhaps they could make a TV show to help pay for the costs, but their main focus could be finding people and justice, and I really like that idea also. Here we go. This is what I was talking about. Coming in from Linda, who says, I tuned in late, but I'm fascinated and excited to know if Robbie has ever worked on the Madeleine McCann case, the little girl who was abducted from her hotel room in Portugal while on vacation with her parents who were dining close by that night. You must hear stuff like this all the time. People probably asking you about this case or that case. Did you work on this one? Did anyone ask you to get involved here? I mean, you're one guy. You've got one brain and two hands. There's only so much you can do in 24 hours, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, a good example was the Natalie Holloway case in Aruba in 2005. We were to go to Aruba, and it was Donald Newsom, Doug Newsom, BBC Radio, 14-time award-winning film producer Ronald Busby, Christopher O'Brien, who's on Ancient Aliens now, and he filmed me back in 2005, by the way, in Dead Whisper, the movie. So we were going to head over there, and they said, "Whoop, stop," because everybody and their grandmother was over there combing the island, and the authorities said, "Don't come now. Wait till it all backs down." So I had all my drawings. We had a team of people, and all my drawings got circulated among the team. And then Ron says, "Well, we can't go. What are we going to do now?" And I said, "Let's fly to Chicago, and we'll film Ghosts and Legends," but it turned out to be Dead Whisper. So I'm in my hotel room, and Ron comes busting in, and he goes, "You sold me out." And I said, "What do you mean I sold you out?" He goes, "You sold everybody out. Look at," and he puts on Fox, and there's my drawings of the shoes on the beach, the boat, everything that was mentioned were on Fox. And I'm going, no. I said, how the heck did that happen? Somebody leaked it out. And so we stay back, and of course we never did go. Come fast forward, I'm in Toronto on daytime live television, and the host just happened to know I was working on the Natalie Holloway case with these guys, and he says, "So what do you think of Vandersloot? Are they going to get him?" And I said, "It's really funny. I can see him murdering again, like really soon." And it was less than a month later, he murdered the girl in Peru. And that was live on TV. I said that.
Oh, my God. Again, that's got to be heart-wrenching for you to know that somebody's about to go do something. And again, what can you do about it? I mean, you can't arrest somebody because you think they're going to commit a crime. But again,
That's
you
true.
know somebody's about to commit a crime. And you've got, obviously, a very successful hit rate. So, people are going to listen to you, probably be inclined to listen to you a little more than they would some other psychics out there, maybe, or other tips that they get. I know law enforcement, they get tips on crimes all the time that are worthless. They have to kind of follow till the end. And yet then there's you. And I would think with your hit rate, you would know, and people would listen to you on it. But again, the police are going to tell you, look, we can't arrest somebody until they've committed a crime. That's just the fact of the matter. And until they do, what can we do about it? I mean, I don't know how it is to live with that. Now, when you're getting, let's say, I want to go through how you do this. So, okay, law enforcement calls, okay, Robbie, we've got something for you. This is what happened. We've got a murder on our hands, and the murderer's still out there. We don't have any leads at all. What do you then do? What is your first step?
Well, I go into a meeting with the detectives. I'm trying to think of a good example. Washington. 2 cases in Washington. One is in Maryland, and then they drove me out to Washington because they asked if I was still in town, if they could drive me out, and they said yes, so they brought me out there. I'm in the DSA's office, and he hands me the map. I talked earlier about the map and drawing a little circle. So I have got off Ronald Reagan Airport. It was a long flight. We're tired. I bring my wife on every death scene I go because she's my pillar, my vent. I get to talk to her. So we get into the DSA. He shows me suspect A, suspect B, doesn't tell me much information, says, well, you don't have the body. He goes, here's a map of Maryland and Virginia, and he goes, find her. So I'm kind of mad, not at them, but the whole situation, and they're upset too because they've been doing this case for a long time. Mom's a CIA, and it's her daughter that was murdered.
Oh, God.
And, yeah, so I'm working with everybody, right? And, okay, fine. They escort me back to the hotel room. I'm kind of upset, so I crack a beer. I take a drink. I'm human. And I'm looking at this map, and I'm just, like, really ticked. So I just looked at Andrews Air Force Base, and I see a little road, and I circle it. I throw the map down. My wife goes, you're not done. I said, yeah, I'm done. I'm finished for the night. I was angry. And the next morning rolls around. I go back to the DSA's office, and I hand Homer the map. And then so he goes, get in the car. So we get in his car, and he drives me over to the west part of Maryland. He goes, this it? I said, nope. Drives me over this part. Nope. This part. Nope. I know what they're doing. And I've been around a long time doing this. He's trying to throw me off track to see if I second guess myself. So I said, stop, Homer. I said, take me to that road. He pulls the car off the side of the road for a moment. He says, get out. So I get out, and he goes, I'm going to tell you something. Nobody knew this, but the phone pinged off the tower over here on the side of the map, which you don't know about, and she went missing over here. And he goes, that's the road I've been looking at, and it's been bothering me. He goes, I don't know how you did it, how you figured it out, that little tiny road out of all of Maryland, Virginia, you picked that road. And I said, well, did you see the information I sent you prior to me leaving Canada? It was like dumping ground, close to the murderer's home. And if you went off Highway 4 and right there, the murderer's home was 10 minutes away from this. And the dumping ground was actual people dumping mattresses and junk all around in there. So we brought the dogs out. The dog team made a hit in a certain area. But it was just 2 small pieces of bones and stuff, and it wasn't her. But we found a bag. We found a bag with flip phones, a weapon, tools that were missing, that he had tools missing out of his truck, girl's blouse, stuff like that correlated with the crime. All right, so this case got washed. The hands got washed because the mom could have took the stand and went against this guy, but she didn't want to tarnish her, reputation, because her daughter, and I'm not speaking bad, please people don't think I'm speaking bad, but this is the truth, and this is honest. Daughter was a hooker and was trying to get her life back together, but drugs and what have you.
Oh.
But mom didn't want to take the stand, right? So you can see where I'm going with this, right?
Man, talk about ripping your heart out. Okay.
Yeah, and everybody's trying so desperately to get this, right? And if there was another avenue, we could. All right, so they got the bag. They're going to try to do DNA, but they need money. And here we go. There's no money. They won't give no money for this case. They washed their hands of it. All right, so
they washed their hands of it because she was a hooker?
Mom wouldn't take the stand against the man who did it because
Okay.
white girl, and he was a color fella. And Maryland with all the Black Lives Matter stuff was happening at the time.
And she probably isn't that excited about saying anything publicly about her daughter.
No, she wasn't.
Oy.
And she didn't want to, like, a reputation, right? So, you ready for this now?
Oh, yeah.
I'm back home almost a year to the day. She calls me and says, we may have found her. You were right. She was wrapped in a blanket 100 feet from the road. You were right. So, oh my gosh, good. So, but we got to wait for dental records because it's going to be a while to get the dental records. Okay. Week and a bit went by, comes back, and it's not her. You found somebody else's baby.
Oh my God.
I found somebody else's baby.
Oh my God. I wonder how in the world does that work? I mean, talk about crossing the wires. Now you've got another case on your hands.
Yeah. Spirit moves in mysterious ways. And the way I can explain that is Kathleen may not have wanted to be found at that time, but she led us to find this other lady or the other woman wrapped up in a blanket, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only way I can explain that. It's very tough. I know we're not stopping with this. I don't give up on anything. I never do. I'll just keep going, and I'll keep in contact with Homer, and we'll do that from there. And he's retiring, but he's doing it on his own time. So you got good people out there the guy's retiring, and he's still doing it, Mm-hmm. So when I say people, there's good cops out there. There's really good cops out there, and he's trying to help.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, in every field. There's good people and bad people in every single field out there. And it's true. And most people, just like when I hear this expression, oh, the government did it. I was once a government employee. And I find that to be such a strange statement, because what is the government? I mean, it's a collection of people who normally they get involved because they want to serve. Yeah, not everybody is on the up and up. They want to take advantage, just like the old song, right? Some want to be abused, and some want to abuse you. That's just the way of the world. That's the way it is. But most people get involved in these areas. First responders, police officers, detectives, the military, the government, all of these kind of areas, because they want to serve and they want to help. And I think it's a real big mistake to start pointing our finger at all police and saying all police are corrupt, or all police are wrong, or all police do this or that, or whatever. It's always going to be incorrect, because that's a collection of individuals in the thousands across this country who are all different. They all get into it for different reasons. But what does it feel like? It may be a strange question to you, Robbie, but what does it feel like? Do you get physical sensations when the information comes? Are there emotions involved? Is there an empathetic quality to the information that you get?
Yeah, when little baby Caesar Angel went missing in Louisville, Kentucky, I got a call, and they sent me a photograph of this beautiful little angel. That's all I had in his name. So I'm looking on the screen, and I'm looking at this boy, and I'm channeling, and I'm getting stadium lights like off. All my diagrams, everything, again, I just refer to the book so everybody knows. In the book, on my website, you can compare it all, take a look, it's all there. Letters from detectives, everything, they're all there. So I'm drawing little circles, stadium lights off. And then I'm going through more repeat offender, 2 boys. Repeat offender, 2 boys. And then I'm going down, okay, give me a name of something. Come on. John. Okay, so I write John. If you stood on the murderer's front porch and you looked through the tree clearing across the road, Papa John Stadium was right there. Now I see flags, and I see men in orange vests. Well, they were doing construction right in front of the murderer's home, and the little boy was playing with the flags, pulling them onto the ground. And that's how this monster got this 4-year-old boy in this house. So I continue on doing my stuff, and all of a sudden there's a break, and there's like a huge pull away, and it's like a void. There's nothing there, and I'm angry, and I'm frantic in my office, and there's just nothing. And I'm just talking out loud and being myself and going through the motions, and I'm feeling everything that's going on, and all of a sudden I'm back in again. But now it's different, totally different. I'm channeling the boy's spirit. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's murdered. He's dead. I can feel it. And so then I continue on, and I'm really angry now, and I'm writing things down. And I say, give me his name. There's choice words I use. It's in the book. It's all raw. And I said, give me his name. And he did. He gave me Cecil. I wrote down Cecil, and I put an arrow to the figurine that he made me draw on paper. And if you take a look at that figure of a 4-year-old boy's eyes compared to the mugshot of the murderer, his ears are pointy exactly. Everything's the same. And his name was Cecil. So when all that information got sent back to Kentucky, the detective got it. The major activist in Louisville, Kentucky, Christopher 2X, he mentioned that, and it was even on the news that it said the police got the break they needed. They used all the leads, and they got Cecil, and they found the body in the trash, which I said too. Dang, that's the bad part. And the good part is that we caught Cecil December 7th, 2007, and he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Good for you. Good for you. When I hear, and I know you go through this too, you must. I mean, just from talking to you for the little while that I've talked to you, I feel like I've gotten to know you enough to know that it must be so hard for you. I can hear you talking about the victims, and you call them angels. And when I hear, little boy found in the trash, it's just, God, it just like to kill you to hear something like that. And then it brings us to another moral dilemma, I guess, the moral dilemma of the human condition. Evil itself. Some people out there will actually say that there is no such thing as evil. I disagree. Now, you and I, we have different spiritual beliefs, and that's fine. But I really do believe that evil exists, that evil is, how do I put this? That evil is almost an entity of its own that can infect the human mind, the spirit, the consciousness. Maybe I don't know how all that works, but I believe that a person can be going along in their life just fine, and evil can find them. How it finds them, how that works, Robbie, I don't know. But do you ever wonder what makes people do these kind of things? Do you ever get so close into the criminal's head that you get a glimpse of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've looked in the eyes of the evil by talking to suspects, being able to do that. They're heartless, they're soulless, they're empty. And you're absolutely right. It's like we all have good and bad in us. We all do. You'd be lying if you said you didn't. We all have good and bad in us. It's that bad that overtakes people, and they become that evil, that sedation of infestation inside of them. It's something that spiritually it takes over, and they become that bad.
Almost like they're giving in to it. Like let's face it, we're all humans, we're all adults here, and we all know that we have an animal nature just under the surface that could come out. A lot of times people will say things offhand. I gotta take a break here. Whoops. Maybe we can continue that talk when we come back from the break. But people will say, well, I just wanted to scream, or I just wanted to punch that guy, or I just wanted to shoot that guy right in the face. But we all know we'd never do that. This is our animal nature under the surface that we all constantly resist. And, most of us, that voice, that animal nature grows very, very distant and very, very quiet. And I think what you're saying, we'll talk about it when we come back more, but I think what Robbie's saying is some of us don't resist it. Some of us give in or fall in to evil. We'll talk about it more when we come back, and we'll be right back.
Can throw out all the blues and hit the city lights, 'cause that's music in the air. Look in his eye, fed on nothing, full of pride. Look at him go, look at him kick, makes you wonder how the other half live. Devil inside, every single one of us. Devil inside, every single one of us. Devil inside.
Midnight in the Desert doesn't screen your calls. We trust you. But remember, the NSA, well, you know. To call the show, please dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers are welcome at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
Oh, we talk about it all the time, but we never really talk about it, do we? I'm talking about it right now. I mean, that darkness that we all have within us. I mean, it's there. It's there for all of us. And we tend to resist it. And you resist it to the point that it gets so quiet, it's just not even a part of your life anymore. And then one day something happens. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Somebody, I don't know, maybe they overcharged you. Maybe you got a bad hotel room. Maybe you just got a raw deal somewhere. And then here it comes. Here it comes. The anger comes. And I think that's where most of us stop. Now, not all of us. Not all of us. There are some out there who actually continue and they follow through with it. And what causes that to happen? What causes some people to not stop right there when they go, man, I could just kill that guy who cut me off? And of course, we don't do it. We'll say it, but we don't do it. Well, some people actually do it. What causes that? What is that? What is the source of that? I guess this is what I'm trying to get at. I'd like to welcome Robbie Thomas back. Oh, by the way, I'm going to let everybody know that we are about to jump into the phones here. I am about to jump in, start opening up the phone line, start taking some of your calls. Every line I have right now is full. So I would just advise you that if you're on the line right now, you're on hold, you can hear the program on hold, please stay there. Because I don't know if you're going to be able to get back through if you hang up. So with that, welcome back, Robbie. And so you have been so much closer to this aspect of humanity than most of us. I know one time I was doing an open lines show, and I don't know how it turned into this, but it did turn into it. All of a sudden, I started getting calls, and the show turned into a program about a brush with evil. And if you would believe this, 3 different people called telling me about their run-ins, their brushes with different serial killers. One lady had a near run-in with Ted Bundy. I don't remember the other 2, but I remember not being able to sleep that night because of these calls. So I know some people in the audience have brushed against real evil, but you have looked it in the eye, you have gotten into its head, and you've seen it. Does that leave a mark on you? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, getting into the head like Ronnie when he killed those 2 men. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like I got to play his game. I have to be willing to get into his realm to do this. There's a very high profile case out of LA. I'm on with LAPD. This gentleman's wife was murdered at the Biltmore Hotel. He's a rock star. He was supposed to win the America's Got Talent 2010. Mm-hmm. It's all out there. People can Google it. It's all on TMZ and whatever. So, looking at the aspects of this and going through 2 years with this gentleman, and I know that he follows me on social media and what have you. He's trying to pin it on a black man and a Cuban man. So I get into the head. I'm following this along. And I do a reading for him on the opposite end of what LAPD is looking at. And he goes afterwards and films what I say. And he goes down this dark area of the backside, exactly how I described it. And he's describing certain areas where blood would be, where the body might have been planted before they get to the final door, which you open it up, there's a stairwell. LAPD did not know this. And he done it, and he filmed it. I got the video. LAPD have the video. The only two people who have it. And he says certain innuendos all through it with his new wife, and after his first wife, his wife for so long died, 2 weeks later he marries another girl. And it's pretty obvious, right? So
yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. And, you know, he goes, one big tip in that whole thing, like I looked at it over and over and over, and I'm going, this is the anal of evil, because, dude, I got you. One thing, when he goes to open the door, she goes, oh, honey, don't you remember? It doesn't open that way. I mean, you just said that on film. You know, murderers and crooks are stupid. And so I set him up, and he filmed it. He did what I seen, and it's amazing. I mean, so now LAPD is pulling in this 3D visual, which is going to cost millions, to do all this 3D visual all through, and it's something else. I mean, I've had Crime Watch call me and want the video. I'm not selling it. I'm not about money. I'm about doing the right thing and getting the guy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, let's do this, Robbie. Let's jump into some phones. Fair warning just for you, I don't screen any of the calls, so I have no idea what I'm going to get. We've talked about the psychic reading thing. You don't do it. I don't allow it. I really don't want to hang up on anybody tonight. So here's what I'll do. If you want a psychic reading, I will ask you if you have another question. That's how we'll handle that. Because it pains me to do that. I'm in the business of running a talk show, not in the business of hanging up on people. So here we go. We'll just jump in, take them one at a time. On the phone, you're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Heather. I have been listening to Robbie, and it is so refreshing. And I thank him for his service. It's an invaluable service. And the words he said that made me know that he is who he is that God is in charge. Robbie, thank you so much for what you do.
God bless you.
Actually,
God bless you, my friend.
You know what? I need to cut in here. I recognize your voice. I know who's on the line here. And, sir, I owe you an apology, sir. The last time you called up and we were talking about the subject at hand that night. And maybe I had way too much coffee that night, because you paused. And it was a little bit too long of a pause, maybe just 1 microsecond longer than I was comfortable with. And I said, hello, come on, we're on the air. Come on, get cracking here. Talk. I am so sorry that I did that. That's my fault, and I should not have done. And it has bothered me ever since that happened. Sir, you didn't deserve that. I'm really sorry about that. You didn't deserve me trying to jump down your throat there.
Well, it's kind of exciting for an old man, you know.
Well, hello. We're on the air, man. Get cracking. No, I'm kidding. Seriously, that's been bothering me for the longest time, and I thought, man, he is never going to call me again for doing that to him. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Heather, I have suffered a lot worse blows in my 70-odd years of living life. So
well, just blame it on a rookie.
You're home free.
Yeah, blame it on the rookie talk show host who was nervous for a second. That's exactly what had happened there. So if you have a question for Robbie, you have the floor. Go right ahead, my friend.
Well, Robbie, do you ever look at... I know that you said that you basically saw things happening, but that you couldn't do anything about it, like the Fukushima disaster over in Japan. Is that a common experience, or is it usually where you get the information after something that you can do something about and help the people that have asked for help?
Yeah, good question. I'm going to revert back to something that Heather said about a meteorite going across the sky and stuff. I always refer to things that I personally do and write and what have you. In the book, Time Shift Paradigm, there are many substantial things I've written that come true post-publication. One was that meteor going across the sky exploding in Russia. And then what I wrote was they would point the finger at America saying it was HAARP. And the men's names, I mentioned them in there, who was the party opposite of the guy in Russia there now. I forget his name, Putin. And that all came up in the news, that he was pointing the finger at America saying it was HAARP. And, you know, there's certain things I've seen I wrote in there. You know, I can't stop that. Just off the wall things like the finding of the Mayan calendar. The cover of my book is the Mayan calendar, and it's burning, which meant that we're going to continue on. Everybody was scared at 2012 the world's going to end. Right. And I put, no, it's going to continue, and they're going to find it. And it's all written in the book. And they did. They found it. And all the links are there. It's on my website. People can take a look. It's very fascinating. I find it fascinating because I'm thinking I'm just writing a script, and all this stuff is coming across. And yeah, it's amazing.
Well, you know, the line between reality and art is getting blurrier and blurrier. Just because I owe the man an apology, sir, does that answer your question? And did you have another one?
You know, I have more questions now, and my pile of answers has gone to zero. My parents have all passed away, so they can't put the question or the answer list that I had when I was 15. You know, I can't plug it into my forehead anymore with a tack, and so I just am enthralled with the stories that Robbie is telling us, and I hope that there are a million more guys and gals doing the same thing to get rid of the scumbag crooks. Mm-hmm. That's just how I feel about it. And the great American public supports you 100%. I'm sure the Canadian people support you the same way, and you are the true hero of the evening, my friend.
Well, you know, I can almost feel you kind of going, but I'm not a hero. I'm just doing what I would do anyway. Aren't you?
You know what? It's just the thing you do. I mean, I look at my wife and and I'm glad you brought that up, because when that boy was missing in Kentucky, I actually said no in the beginning. I don't want, don't feel bad about me. I mean, it was Canada Day. I said no. I got people and family from all over in the backyard. I hung the phone up. I turn around, and there's my wife, and she goes, no, you're going to call them back, and you're going to do the right thing. And you know what? She's my right arm. And I said, yeah, you're right. I picked the phone up, and I spent my afternoon doing that for that little boy.
Wow. Well, Ozzy Osbourne said it. He said it a long time ago. Behind every great man is a great woman with a good left boot.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he knows what he's talking about. Thank you very much for the call. And like I said, we don't screen calls around here, and I just grab them as they come. Right now, I'm just kind of going down the line here. On the next line, you're on the phone. You're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello, Heather. Hello, Robbie.
Hello.
What?
I'm super glad I got through tonight. I give huge nods to your guests. I am enjoying the listen, but I had a very brief thing I wanted to say to you, and that's I have replacements for the gift that I was originally going to give you. So you will be getting a package of 3 really cool items soon. You're a bass player, right?
Me?
Yeah, you like bass guitars, don't you?
Well, I can. I can play bass. I prefer guitar, but I can play bass too, yeah.
Well, do me another favor, please, and don't ignore first-time caller line tonight, because out of my house is another friend of mine who is on your call waiting.
Oh, okay.
And-
Well, I do see that there. Somebody on the first-time caller line is patiently waiting, and I was going to go there, but I noticed that you had been on hold for quite a while, so I wanted to grab your call.
Always worth the wait, and it's great talking, and I love the guest, and I'm going to love to listen to the rest of the show. Hope you're having a great night, and I hope it continues that way.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the call. In that ad that played earlier, Robbie, about how there's ongoing stories on the show, he is referring to an ongoing story. But what I'm going to do is not burn up any of your airtime, Robbie. And when I get the said packages, well, then we'll talk about it. Thank you very much for the call. I believe that's Steve in California. Now, let me see who else has been on the line for quite a while. That would be you here on this line. And now you're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Heather. This is Smog.
Well, good evening.
And I have a couple questions. The first one is, what is his hit rate percentage? I'm very interested in that.
All right. Robbie, you got a figure, even approximate?
Yeah, no, good question. Good question. I never looked at it that way, ever. I just know that we go out and do what we do. It never crossed my mind into things like, what's my number? What's this or that? I don't have time to think of things like that. And I'm trying to find the right answer for you.
Are you you're just going from case to case to case to case, aren't you?
Yeah. And just helping. And then if that piece gets them to the next level, great. And if that piece gets them to arrest that guy, even better. And if, we bring somebody home, that's even much more better. Like I said, after our show, I'm pulling an all-nighter because I have a portfolio I have to put together for 8 a.m. for Indiana. It's one case after another. It just keep go.
Yeah, actually, knowing a little bit more about your life and how your day goes, I'm surprised you found 3.5 hours to spend on this show at all. I think we're lucky to get some time with you at all. So, okay, what about out of 10? Out of 10 cases, how many are resolved? A guess, 8 out of 10?
Well, no, in the book there's 15. They're all resolved.
Oh, okay. So about 10 out of 10. Well, all right. Smog, how's that for a number for you?
That's pretty exciting, about 100% then.
Well, he would not be on this show if it was more like 4 out of 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I'm 100%. Impressive. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, right? And
right.
But, I'm just looking at things like I'm trying to look back at all these cases really quick for you. If it boils down to, I wish I could have done something different to save the child's life rather than, getting there late but getting the guy. Mm-hmm. That's a wrong for me because I wanted to save that child, and that eats me up for the rest of my life. I review every child case from morning to night. It never stops. I mean, I talk to my wife about it all the time, and she's used to it. It's like a broken record with me. But I review them over and over and over. I just think I could do better, or do something when it comes down to that inevitable thing again,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a man after my own heart. That's how I start my day every day. I can do better. We'll do better than we did last night every single day. So it's a little difficult, I think, Smog, to answer that question because he's just not thinking along those lines in those kind of terms. So.
Well, it sounds like, he gets the right information every time.
Well, I'd say...
It's just a matter of where it leads.
Let's put it this way. His hit rate is uncanny.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have another question?
Yes, I do. About the Fukushima, how much of a lead time did you have when you got the premonition to when Fukushima hit? Because I'm kind of an earthquake predictor myself. I just can't tell where it's going to be or how big it's going to be. But I get something called earthquake brain where I just can't think right. or I get really dizzy. And the day before this last one in Papua New Guinea, I got dizzy, really dizzy. And it's like, oh, earthquake dizzy. So I said there's going to be a large earthquake, 6.0 and above, in the Ring of Fire, or North America, South America, or Central America, because that seems where I hit off of. But I can't tell you where.
Well, what I did was, while I was writing the script, I made notes on my Facebook page from early March, up until March 10th. And then I talked to Don Hutchison about it. And I'm just reading, actually in the book, I pulled out a little verse here he wrote, collaboration. He says, Robbie described for me the turbulent end of the world events containing the writings which concluded the giant tsunami caused by the 9.00 earthquake. I thought nothing of it. Robbie and I talked 2 days later after the event in Japan. Imagine the surprise when it went from 8.9 to 9.0. And then he goes, remarkable. And this is the producer of Liftoff Productions.
2 days. Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing because I put down my last words, and if people join the page, they can take a look at it. My last words the night before it happened, I said, what's about to happen tomorrow, we all have to accept. Because we never seen a 9.0 in our lifetime. Nobody did. And then it happened the next day.
We just have to accept. Gosh, and that's never going to be good enough for humanity. We're always going to fight that. We're always going to try to think our way around that acceptance. And this is just something we're going to have to struggle with, because what we often hear again and again is that humanity right now is in the middle of a shift in consciousness. And this makes me think, is this making us all more psychic? Are we all becoming more intuitive? And according to those who know, apparently yes. And so, look, this is something we're all going to have to face and deal with on into the future as more and more of us become this kind of sensitive. So thank you very much for the call. I really do appreciate it. And all the calls tonight, by the way. Let me see. We do have a break coming up. Let me just see for a second here. We'll go to this line. I just wonder, we do have a break coming up, but if you're on the air, and will you hang out over the break so we can actually talk when we come back?
Sure will, Heather.
All right. I recognize that voice. That sounds like somebody I know. What is your question, Alan? Just curious.
Okay. My question is this, Robbie. I know it's a blessing to be able to do what you've been called to do. I mean, anytime anybody's able to work in a profession they're called to, it's a wonderful thing, and especially using the gift you have that's been given to you by God. But I too have worked in the field with abused. I used to work with abused girls, and I would have up to 10 teenage girls at one time. And when they would come in, I would read their files, and I tell people, I say, you think you know the dregs of humanity, but you don't. And I know you working in the sheriff's department, working with police, you know. And I would read these files, and then these girls would come in, and I would look at them, and I would think to myself, and I would become angry, and I would say things like, why didn't somebody just take that person out back and put a bullet in their head rather than let this child go through years and years of this before they were able to stop it? And I know that you working in this kind of darkness day in and day out has an effect on you. And that's my question. How do you, day in and day out, deal with this kind of darkness, and what effect has that had on your life?
All right. Well, at least the break gives us all some time to kind of contemplate the question.
I never meant to call you when you sorrow. I never meant to call you when you pain. I'm the one who wants that now see you laughing. I only want to see you laughing in the purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain.
Want to take a ride? This is Midnight in the Desert with Heather Wade. To call the show, manipulate your telephonic device and dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers, 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
Honoring a request there from our first-time caller who is patiently waiting, and oddly, it is so appropriate for the moment somehow, isn't it? Well, Robbie Thomas is here tonight. We're in the middle of his answering a question from a caller, and if you would like, I've got one line free, and the North American Skype line is free. If you want to call in on either the public number or the North American Skype line, you're more than welcome to it. Welcome back, Robbie, and bring back Alan, our caller here, so you two can talk and you can answer his question. Welcome back, Alan.
Thank you.
Sure. So, Robbie, what do you think after contemplating the question for a few minutes?
Yeah, you know, my out, what I do and how I guess pull myself together is I pray a lot, and I also work out in the gym. I pump iron. I stay fit. I used to teach self-defense for years. I used to teach the law enforcement and what have you. So I just carried on into pumping iron. And another thing, like I said, my wife, you know, my vent. I call her my vent. I shouldn't call her a vent. You know.
I have an odd feeling, like, Robbie, that she doesn't mind.
Yeah, probably she rolls her eyes. My pillar. And my kids, you know. I got girls. So I'm the guinea pig. For whenever they want to do something, I'm involved. If they want to color my nails or they want to put the other week they put mask on me, and it was funny.
Well, I hope it was a good one.
I do whatever they want.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, it hurt. They pulled it off. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was one of those peel masks. I hope it wasn't the black one. Boy, that is painful stuff. I got some of that stuff here recently, and I recommend to anybody out there who wants to use the black mask, just coming from a female, here goes section at a time before you end up in your own private horror movie. Alan, did you have anything else?
Just one statement, and if I might be so bold as to give him a little piece of advice that I did. Just concentrate on your successes, and just remember that the peace and the justice that you're bringing these victims' family, and like you say, continue to pray to God, and you'll be just fine.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for your calls tonight and last night. I really do appreciate Alan. He is a super cool cat. Oh, you know, just about everybody who calls tonight, you'll find really genuine and cool people out there in the audience. And so watch Road out there, Alan. He's usually driving around the country as he listens to the program in the middle of the night. And here we go, on to the first-time caller line. And you are on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Good evening.
How's everybody doing?
Well, you know, cooking right along, raging through the night. That's what we do around here.
This is nightly. Well, it's a daily occurrence for me. I'm not a daytime person. I'm a moon baby. Yeah.
Well, so you've been listening to this tonight, huh? What do you think of Robbie Thomas?
Nods off to him. I think he's doing a great work and great deed for the bigger purpose and the bigger picture of the universe. And but I do want to refer back to one of your questions, though, even though you do have an awesome guest tonight, about the concept of evil and about what's really out there, the bigger picture of things. Because me, myself, I'm also a witch, too. And, before I get back to involved in this conversation, also had an opportunity to meet a really close friend of yours, apparently, who kind of like Steve backdoored into me, named Carol, who passed away recently. And, she was going to read me. She was actually in the process of reading me, but she didn't get time to finish before she passed on.
Oh, are you talking about Spontane?
Yeah.
Oh, man. You know, who didn't she talk to? I mean, she was out there talking to everyone who listens to this show. That lady, talk about an angel. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, side note there. What about the concept of evil do you want to ask Robbie about?
More and more each day you keep coming into it. Like, certain people out there also have different abilities, and you start getting into like a mental plane of reality. And when you're actually able to see it on a constant daily basis, like, how does it like affect you mentally, physically, or spiritually? Because sometimes you start seeing in people and it starts trying to get backdoors in because of all the positivity you are pushing out there. And there's always going to be that little weird wave that comes back sometimes because you bring attention to yourself. I mean, a lot of people understand that too, though, and it takes a very courageous person to do that. And I'm fortunate to know like a group of individuals who do a lot of the same stuff, not like in the same magnitude as you do, but in their own way, they help out in the light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, so how does that affect you on a daily basis? Like,
okay, let's find out.
Yeah, I tell my daughter, she's going through to be a nurse. You take a little bit at a time, and you bite that chunk off, and you chew it. She was getting into the grand scheme of indulging on everything, and it was encompassing her, and it was bringing her down. So I had to reformulate a way that she could go through finishing the course. That's what I do. I actually take a little bit at a time. How I can focus on what that evil is, or how I can re-energize it with light. There's a gentleman. He was on drugs, and I used to be. Here's a part of my life people don't know. I used to be vice president of an organization that worked with the senators here in Canada to change the Family Law Act, and we worked with Roger Galloway and Senator Ann Cools and a lot of different women and men senators. So he was having a hard time. And so I decided, just take a little bit and put some light into this man. And he wasn't seeing his kids. His ex-wife was keeping the kids from him. He was doing drugs. And so he's off the drugs. And he finally started to get to see his kids again. And I've been, helping him out in a little bit of counseling that way. So that's my part of giving back. And if I can give back in that kind of sense, I'm putting light into him. And I see him growing, and you can see a whole different aspect of this man. And it's fantastic. So that I'm not looking at the dark side of things anymore. I'm just feeding the good. And as I get the backlash, like you say, of having the dark, I'm human. I am. I mean, I falter. I have my moments. I'm just the guy who takes out the trash and does dishes and, that type of thing. I'm not perfect. And, I just look at it. If I could just take that little chunk and chew it off a little bit at a time, I'll move on to the next one, and I'll just progress that way.
So you eat elephants is what you do.
I do. I do.
Wow. Well, that's really good advice because, honestly, that's the same thing I do to get through the day. People have asked me, how in the world you were handed an impossible task, and how in the world do you do it? Instead of chunks of a situation to chew over bit by bit, I go by the little segments of time. So let's get through the next hour. Let's get through tonight, and then we'll worry about tomorrow. That's kind of how I look at it. If you're facing something that's overwhelming to you, it's like that's the only way to deal with it. That's the only way to get through it. Because, look, you and I aren't the quitting type, Robbie. We just don't have it in us to say no, and we're too stupid to walk away from something. So, look, you gotta do it. You're gonna do it anyway. And if you don't, well, neither one of us will be able to sleep at night. I kind of get the sense you're that kind of person, too, that if you were to walk away from a case that then is not solved, you wouldn't be able to live with yourself. So it's kind of like you have to do this, and then you have to find a way to deal with doing it.
Yeah. I mean, God only gives you what you can handle in a day. And, that's what I get. So if I'm not one to back down on anything. I was told or asked on many shows, don't you fear these people? And no, I wouldn't have went through to be a police officer in the beginning. No, I don't. I just don't fear anything. I think I put the fear into them. That's how I look at it. So I revert and turn it around, make it a positive, always.
Mm-hmm. So you become the one who knocks. Huh? That's pretty cool. Well, thank you very much for the call. I hope we hear from you.
Are you talking about if there's crimes committed and I see them on TV and then like that? Is that how you're talking?
No, it's just, having to talk about it on the radio and as well, just the sheer number of crimes and just the way it's all defined, it seems kind of a little bit much for you, possibly. For anybody,
Sometimes
really.
it is. Yeah, no, it is. Sometimes it's overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. I get mad. You know how many times I quit? And then I turn around and go, no, but it's just my anger because, like you or anything, I'm done. I quit. And in the next hour, I have a coffee and I'm fine. There's a lot. And when I say there's cases come in my office all the time, it's like, I don't know if you hear the ding on my phone. That's emails coming in my phone. And that's people that are saying, I just read one a minute ago. My daughter was murdered in Maui. I mean, there's just I can't get over this. There's a lot.
And
I feel for everybody.
There's only one Robbie, and yet all this crime out there.
There is. There's too much. I look at, I hear the accent. Are you from Boston area?
No.
No?
Pennsylvania.
Okay. It's, I look at all the different cases in the areas and what I'm doing. It's overwhelming. But I do it one at a time. Mm-hmm. And I know there's so many people, they write, go, please now, call me now. And I say, well, I can't just jump to you because of the fact that I got all these families who've been waiting for. One lady waited a whole year and a half for me to get to her case. That's how long it took me to get to her case from all the other ones. The reason why this one here tomorrow, it fell into my lap is because I don't need to do it. It's done. It's just that they need to see the photograph and all the evidence from this woman, and I'm just going to turn it over to the detective because she doesn't want to talk to. She wants to go through me for some reason. And it's not the first time I've had people do that with me. I sat with a witness who gave boxes of material one time, and she says, I don't want to sit with the police, but you got to be there and record it. So I had to bring my recorders and record it while the police were there. I don't know, just people do that. It's overwhelming. It is.
I don't know how it wouldn't be. It would have to be just overwhelming. And I imagine there's got to be moments for you when, you do want to quit. And if you don't quit, at least you need a moment's reprieve, just a little break, even if it's a couple of hours, spend time with your wife, with your children, and have just a kind of a little mental break from it, because I don't think there's a human on earth that could be steeped into this kind of material all the time, 24 hours a day. Anybody would just go nuts.
Yeah, that's true. And like I say, I go pump iron with my wife, and then I have my kids. Yeah. I come home and I pick on my kids.
Well, and I bet you give those weights hell out there. Thank you very much for the call. We'll go here back to the phone. You're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Heather. Hey, Robbie.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I posed this question to the wormhole initially, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it on the air.
Okay.
First question is, this is going to be more toward the paranormal. I know you investigate a lot of crime, but have you ever investigated paranormal cases?
Yeah, I've been in the paranormal for decades. My first movie is 2005. It's called Dead Whisper. I worked with Michael Esposito, one of the leading EVP specialists. He helped out in the PSYOPs in your American Army, and he was a specialist where he worked with the Israelis and during the Iraqi War. I got asked who to recruit, so I recruited a lot of different people. Indiana Ghost Trackers, him, and we made the movie Dead Whisper. One of my cases I really liked was Al Capone, and going down to Willowbrook, right across from the Willowbrook ballroom that burnt down in Willowbrook by Chicago. And the fire chief who's on NBC right now, I think it's called, Chicago Fire, Don Kress, he's the fire chief on that TV show. He used to own Al Capone's Speakeasy in Willowbrook, and we filmed there. It was pretty amazing to hear what they were talking over top of me on film, and I was discussing the two eras. One was Hell's Angels and one was Al Capone, and going down the one stairwell if you went down that one stairwell, the back door, you could see the blood stains on the floor. You weren't coming back. That's where they took him out and killed him. I've done that, and I've worked, I've done Moundsville Prison. I've been all over, Waverly Hills, all through the States.
You've really
New
been
Orleans.
to some haunted locations. Moundsville is it's sure got a reputation.
It does.
Yeah, it certainly does. So, well, it looks like we got to take another break, but I don't think I'm done talking about the paranormal aspect of it. I'd like to talk about that a little bit more when we come back. And, well, the phone has just filled itself up here all over again, so we have more calls for you, Robbie. And I've got to double check in here with the wormhole again to see what else is out there for us. I know it's incredibly active tonight, so I know there's a lot of good information there, a lot of good comments and questions from all of you that we'll get on the air, and, well, we'll do that as soon as we come back. If you're on the phone, stay there, because I'll get you on the air when we come back.
Only fools rushing, but I am here falling in love with you.
Take a ride? Your conductor, Heather Wade, will punch your ticket when you call 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers are welcome at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
You know, the more I talk with Robbie Thomas, my guest tonight, the more I wonder what it must be like to be him. What does it feel like to be him? I bet that's a pretty interesting story, but we're on a different topic right now. We're on the topic of, does he investigate paranormal cases? Well, he does. And I wanted to just talk about this aspect a little bit more before we jump back into the phones, because we still have more calls for Robbie. Welcome back, Robbie. So when you're on paranormal cases, what kind of cases are we talking about? First of all, are we talking about hauntings? Do you figure out who is haunting a location? Is that the kind of thing that you work on when it comes to the paranormal?
Yeah, we just got done doing Coexistence, a new TV series that Keith Age and I wrapped up in November, as I was speaking earlier. We went through all America, Midwest, and we hit like Rhodes Hotel in Indiana, the Twin City Opera House in Ohio, a whole slew of places, 8 in total. The Bel Air House in Ohio. And looking at everything that we went into to film, we were there for 2-3 days filming. Some pretty good stuff got captured on film. So what it was the ghost hunter, Keith, I've known him for years. He actually seen me on TV. My first 1-hour television special was in 2003, and it came out of Ottawa, Canada, and it was syndication all and into the States. And he called me up and he says, you know, I like what you do, and one day I want to work with you. So here we are. We're working. It's this many years later, but I've known him all these years. So we go in, we're filming, and he'll put all his, I call it gadgets, all his machines and stuff up, and then he'll say, like one instance, picture him about 15 feet away from me, and the temperature gauge dropped 15 degrees. It went down further. He goes, it's over here, isn't it? And I said, no, it's not over there. And I turned sideways in my chair, and I put my thumb like pointing over my shoulder, and I go, it's right here. And on film, and in snapshot too, they caught this 8 foot, maybe 8.5 foot by about 5 feet wide. I'm not kidding you. And it had a huge head on it. It's caught on film. That is part of the show. I mean, that's real. We caught that. And we're taking out of the Rhodes Hotel. We had static cameras up. Everybody signs a non-disclosure. You cannot film and use the information all comes for the show, but you're allowed to film and be part of the show with us. So we brought people in the public with us as well. So we're up in the one area, and I said, the kid's running right here. But we went down to this other, at the end of the bordello, we went down to the one room, and Keith's instruments are going off. And we had one guy who was live on Facebook. He didn't really read the memo that went out. And all you hear is, F you. And he turns and he catches that everything on live on Facebook. Well, hundreds of people seen that. And we had to take it down from Facebook because it's part of the filming. But a lot of people got a good glimpse at what we caught. And so that's the type of paranormal we're getting into. And we bring about 20, 30 people from the public with us on each place we went.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Boy, you would make a hell of a remote viewer, Robbie. Man, you would be so good at that. Well, we'll go to the phone here. On a phone, you're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Thank you for being patient, and now you're on the air. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Dave from Salt Lake City.
Hi, Dave.
I have a question for. Hello, Robbie.
Hello.
Do you?
How are you?
Do you get a lot of good? I have a question. You do a lot of past events. Do you get a lot of future premonitions?
Yeah, no, good question. Like I'll reiterate about Time Shift the Paradigm, the book. When it came out in 2012, there was things where I mentioned in there English, Spanish-speaking scientists find this cave in Machu Picchu, but it wasn't English-Spanish; it was French-Spanish. So I was off by one language, and that was the title. And all the news links are there by each event that came true, and what was described in that tunnel, or the room that they found. So I was predicting these future events, and like the meteor going over Russia, that was predicted. There's a lot of things that came true in that in the book. You know, I look at things like that.
Well, if future events would have to have already occurred, so where does free will come in? Do you see my point? When you see a future event, is it a high probability, or is that event already occurred?
Right. Then again, do we get into ripple of time? Are we actually, in this dimension or some other dimension, it's already happened, but we're just that ripple effect? It's a quantum question, and I like it. But in my aspect, I'm seeing singular, and as I see it, I'm writing it down, and I'll admit, sometimes through it, I was aloof to what was going on. I didn't even know. I was just writing. I was going with the flow. I did it, and then turn around is like I was getting critics calling me saying, "You did it again. You did it again." What am I doing? It's coming true in the book. Everything's coming true. All their comments are all there as well. So, I mean, Intrepid Magazine, the CEO, he's a very big scientific individual, and he kept following it. And in fact, he even wrote the foreword to the book, which I was very pleased that he did. I like your question. And you know, has it happened? I'm already seeing it. And are we the backside of the future? You know, it's a very quantum question, and I'm not that scientific to answer it. I don't think I'm qualified.
You know, it makes me think back. I'm thinking your story, your life, I guess, is reminding me of a lot of movies tonight, but it makes me think of Arrival because they tackled that question in the movie Arrival. Wow. Yeah, it's impossible to know, but I'm almost inclined to think that we are somehow viewing something that has already occurred, because there's no stopping it. But then again, we all have free will. So if somebody makes a choice before the event happens, will that choice then change the timeline and prevent that thing from happening? Or is it inevitable, as soon as a person has decided something is going to happen, that it then happens? And this is how a person gets a headache and doesn't want to think about time travel anymore, because it can really give a person a headache. It's just another one of those almost impossible to answer questions. I think we as humans just don't have enough information, and I'm going to add a yet, because you said quantum, and I think physics is going to one day, not today, and maybe not next year, but physics will one day help us answer that question through complicated mathematical equations, probably. Thank you for the call and for the excellent question there. Really appreciate that. All the calls and questions have been good tonight on the phone. Back to the phone. You're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Heather. Good evening, Robbie. This is Mike in Montana.
The Mike in Montana. Welcome to the program, Mike.
Thank you. Robbie, I'm actually related to a Thomas. She's coming down the stairs right now. But my question is, do you ever get a sensation when you know you're right? I mean, like a cold chill, or maybe your scalp will tingle a little bit?
Yeah, I get like a kid in a candy store. It's like I want to blurt it out. I just want to, say it's on an investigation, and they got to do their, I call them blue liners. They got to do their cop thing, and I just wish I could just go, no, just do this, and it's done. But no, they got to go through their motions. When I'm home here in Canada, and Sergeant Christ was talking to me on the phone, and he's saying, do you know the guy? And I said, yeah, his name's Lester. He works in an RV center. He's a mechanic. So they went undercover as mechanics to apply for a job to see if they could get inside what he was doing in his workplace, because they were looking for the weapon that killed Paige. And then they say, Robbie, he's following us. And I'm on the car, and I'm on the car, and I'm going, you guys, you shouldn't have done. And I'm thinking to myself, you should have done it the way I said to do it. It wouldn't have happened this way. But we ended up inevitably getting him. There's certain things that I wish that they would do, and it would work faster. And the chills, and like you say, knowing I'm right. Yeah, it's very difficult. And that sensation of like, yeah, I did it. I know I'm right. Is because it's not me. It's them on the other side who are giving me this message to help. So I'm going, yeah, it's good for the good guys. We did it. We did it as a team. And, it's not me, and it's never been about me. It's about people who, loved ones on the other side, sending messages because they want this thing resolved. They want it done proper.
Mm. And I think because evil just isn't strong enough. I think love is the real power in this world, and they're coming through from the other side with love to do the right thing. And so are you. And I think that's really where the power comes from. Whatever God is, there's something coming from there too. I know it. I just know it.
Yes.
But Russell Targ and I were recently talking about this. He was talking about this. The way to increase a person's ability, whether you want to call it intuition or psychic or what have you, is to recognize that feeling of being right. And this is what he tries to do. He's got an app called ESP Trainer. I'm trying to use it, but I'm not a very good psychic. But what he does with this app is he's trying to train people to recognize that feeling, that giddy feeling that you get when you know you're right, he's trying to train that into us so that we know when we're right. He says, and this is Russell Targ now, he was a part of the original Stargate program, the government's remote viewing program. And he helped to develop the current remote viewing protocol that just about everybody uses. There's a few different protocols, but the basic protocol he helped to develop. And he says this is the key. This is the key. If you want to have these kind of abilities, you've got to recognize what it feels like to be right. And maybe that's why Mike is asking this question, because I know he dabbles in expanding his consciousness, training his consciousness in developing these abilities. So I wonder if he wasn't asking you that question to get a little information for himself so that he knows when he is right. And if that's what he was after, man, I can't blame him for that. And I know it's hard to believe, Robbie, but yes, there's another call on the phone. You're on the air with Robbie Thomas. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how you guys doing?
It's a good night.
Good. Hey, Robbie, where are you from, the Boston area then?
No, I border Michigan. I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canuck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you mentioned that. So I'm from that area originally, so I was wondering. I had two questions for you. First was on, are you familiar with the circumstances surrounding Chris Cornell's suicide? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, a little bit. Like this sex, something with children, or sex trade and stuff like that, and uncovering it, and different. So yeah. So that, and then more. My question was more of just the kind of sketchy, the sketchy way that they sort of found him and they pieced it together, and it was like that whole thing just sounded, almost like it was staged. And I'm not one for going on conspiracy theories with that kind of death, because I feel like that's a little insensitive. But at the same time, to go out that way and really just think about it. All right, it was a workout band, right? An elastic workout band.
Oh, that he had around his neck. Right.
Right. And he hung it from like the corner of a door, and they sort of, they had these pictures, and I just, anything like that where there's these high profile stories that make the news, whether it's a celebrity or whoever it is. Do you ever dig into that stuff just, on your own, and kind of, if you would like to get an answer to something, or if you think something is, doesn't sound right or sounds a little fishy, is that something that you personally would, be able to, get some insight into, just for your own knowledge? Or how do you deal with things like that, where you just have general curiosity?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, the way I'll answer it is this. My buddies come over, they're blue liners, and they sit on the front porch with me, and we have beer, and we talk, and we don't talk shop at all, because we see it all day long. And, they go through all the grimace and everything, and it's just, how's the day, how's your flowers growing, that type of thing. I mean, seriously, we don't talk anything like that. I see enough of it through my week, my day. I don't bother jumping into a case, because I got so many that are waiting for me, and there are a lot high profile cases out there. Like I said, I'm in LA right now. One in Washington where a biker's in jail, and he shot and killed, and he shot, stabbed, and had sex with a girl, buried her in a bag. And, I'm doing that case, and there's just like so many out there. I'm so tied up. I wouldn't want to jump to another case just to, for the fun of it. I don't think it's fun. I just don't do it. I just try to relax my mind and get away from it as much as I can. If it's 5 minutes for the day, I got 5 minutes to myself. I call it me time. Mm-hmm. And I do answer a lot of different questions from people who email me and stuff. Mm-hmm. I do. I spend time. So it's mostly I donate my life to people. It's true.
Wow. So sometimes there just isn't enough time, and you just can't. I know the Chris Cornell thing, boy, that hit me so hard. You know,
Yes.
it hit me really, really hard. I think I was even bawling on the air that night. But I don't know what it is about that, but it doesn't feel right to me. Again, I'm not a psychic, and what in the world do I know? But there's something about that entire situation with Cornell that doesn't seem right. I just don't know. And so thank you.
I know it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I can't place my finger on it, and I'm not a psychic, so I don't know these things, and I'm not a cop or anything. All I know is my gut is telling me something's wrong, but my gut also tells me that eventually it's going to come out. So, you know, I guess I'm sort of waiting for it to come out. But I have a feeling that there are investigations going on, and somehow, some way, I think it's going to be because of his wife. His wife is going to run across something, and then the truth is going to come out, and I think it's going to be from her. And this is not from some psychic flash or anything like that. This is based on all the information that I've read and tried to put together. That's my instinct on it. Thank you, sir, for calling up and bringing that up, because there's a lot of cases like this, and a person might wonder, you know, if you're going through the news and you see these headlines, you know, what do you do about it? So thank you very much, sir. Into the wormhole I'd like to go, and Kevin, who had called us, I made a big mistake. Sometimes people ask one question and I move on. Well, he had another question. He sent it here through the wormhole. He says, Robbie has abilities that are similar to another guest, Christina George. Has he ever investigated UFOs or alien abduction cases, or had any experiences himself? You ever go out there to that kind of territory?
Yeah, I was working security at Imperial Oil, which is a refinery, big refinery in my hometown. It was broad daylight. I was gate 218. And it was a shutdown. So you got like hundreds and hundreds of guys coming in to do the shutdown. All of a sudden we hear over the radio, close the gates, stay off the radio. And then we didn't even have time to do that. We looked up and it came across from Michigan right into Sarnia, and it looked like a football, but it wasn't a football, and it was changing colors, and it hovered over the coker and into the cracker. That's where your gas gets exchanged from into the nuclear and stuff, into the oil, into gas. And then it was there like briefly, I don't know, maybe a tenth of a second, 2 seconds, and then it went back slowly. Then you could hear the jets from Selfridge Air Force Base get launched. You can hear them screeching across the sky. And this thing just took right off. And everybody staring up in the sky noticed it. It was broad daylight. So, yeah, they're out there.
Oh, man. Oh, there's so many things I want to ask you, Robbie. Oh, man, from what happened to who was it that was after Art? You know, who is responsible for me being here? I don't know if you know that story. The reason
I do.
You do know that story? You know why I'm sitting here tonight, and it's not Art?
Art follows me on Facebook.
Why, I should not be surprised about that at all. I want to know the burning question that's been on my mind, again, talking about animal nature, because I want to punch whoever it is square in the face. Whoever it was that was tormenting him. Boy, would I ever love to know that. Some personal things from my own life. Boy, would I ever want to know. And, God, I got this MJ-12 document that was given to me last year. I'd love to know if that thing is real. I think what I really need here, Robbie, is to gain my own psychic ability. I wish I had that. Man, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
I could pick your brain, but that's not what we're here for tonight. But
calories aren't real. You can eat anything you want. Calories aren't real.
Calories are not real? Oh, cool. Then I can have 2 cheeseburgers tonight then. Okay.
There you go. You're lucky.
All right. 2 cheeseburgers it's going to be. Here's another one that I think might be a cool question as we're quickly running out of time here. Chad in the wormhole says to ask him about the missing 411 cases. Can he bring any insight into the forces at work in these mysterious cases? Ever heard of David Paulides?
No. Here's the thing. You know, there's thousands and thousands of cases out there. And my day, again, I kind of just watch a little bit of CNN and Fox, not too much. But I'm consumed in paperwork and cases, and that's about it. So I don't get to see until people email me or call me and, here's a case. But I don't, when people say, how about this case? How about that case? I just don't hear them. I just don't know because I'm so involved in everything else I have.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. It makes sense. David Pilates, I'm not sure people pronounce it differently. He investigates people who go missing in national parks. And he's been...
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I did get asked about that. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. Your head is full of stuff, and every spare minute of your life is taken up. So I get it. I understand.
Producer Patricia Baker, I believe, asked me about doing this and said, there's people in national parks going missing and everything. Would you like to get involved in doing a TV series about doing this? And I said, well, America's Most Wanted is already filming in this case over here, and I filmed another series over here doing Paris Supernatural. And then just as my book came out, Heather, about 15 days ago, an Emmy Award-winning film director called me up and says, they're talking about getting a show going immediately. We've had like 4 or 5 talks already. The plans are already drawn up, and we're waiting just for one phone call. So, getting involved in something like that, oh my gosh, I'm so intrigued. I'd love to get involved. I'm serious. I would. I'd love to go out there and with you doing stuff like that would be kind of cool. But, what do you do? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, no, that is it. And I can understand because there's an old expression that a family member told me one time when I got overwhelmed. She said, look, here's what you got to do. You got to deal with what is in front of you. Okay? You deal with what's in front of you, and when you're done with that, you'll know what to do next because something else will be in front of you. And I get the sense that that's how you deal with your life. You deal with the case that's in front of you, and you deal with that for as long as you have to deal with that, and then there's another thing that's in front of you, and you do this day after day. This is your life. This is how it goes. And when you can't handle it anymore, you'll kind of pull yourself away from it, get as much time as you can steal, and then you're pulled back in. And I think this is how your life just goes. And I don't know how you do it. Well, I do know, actually, because you explained this to us. But I still don't know how you do it. I mean, there's something about the mental strength that you have. I don't know that the rest of us have, but look, we have run ourselves out of time here. You have been absolutely fantastic tonight. The door is open. The welcome mat is out. You can come back on Midnight in the Desert anytime you want to, Robbie. I would be honored to do another show with you sometime, if it's, in a few months or in a few years. It wouldn't matter to me. But I wish you absolutely the best, sir. You're doing God's work.
God bless you, and thank you. And I'll be back. You got me.
I sure hope so. I don't want to be another person adding to your, burden out there. But let me do this also. So his website is robbiethomas.net. You can find him on Twitter. You can find him on Facebook. And the book that we've been talking about tonight is Psychic Profiler, The Real Deal, True Crime Cases, Volume 1, which leads me to believe that there's probably a Volume 2 in there somewhere. So, look, usually I say a few words to my guest after the program, after we get off the air. I'm not going to do that tonight because you have to go. So just take it from my heart, Robbie. I'm grateful that you're out there and that you're doing this work.
Thank you so much, Heather, for having me, and it was a pleasure.
Man, wow. Robbie Thomas, everybody, Robbie Thomas. Now, like I said, we never have psychics on the show, but I will invite Robbie Thomas anytime he wants to come on Midnight in the Desert. Well, we'll go another go-round with him. And you know what? We are back on track, ladies and gentlemen. That is how a show is supposed to go, right there. And when it doesn't, you can bet I'm going to say something, because I do not go along to get along, and I expect a certain quality. And we got that tonight, and we'll get it tomorrow night, and on and on and on it goes. So with that, everybody, I love you guys out there. Thank you for joining me for another night. Thank you for calling me. And you keep love alive. Good night.